Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Monday morning, a wild weekend. BYU fans are waking up happy. Utah State fans kind of expected that win, a 40-point over Air Force. Air Force is terrible, but still the Aggies won. The Utes dropped the game to BYU. The Jazz lose to Philly, which they're trying to do. Hockey team got 3 points out of 4 on the road, and RSL lost at home. San Diego beats them 3-1. It was 1-1, and there were 2 opportunities for RSL to score on breakaways, and they didn't convert either one. One would have put them up 2-0 in the first half. The other one would have put them up 2-1 in the second half. Those 2 opportunities don't go in. Sure enough, San Diego scores twice in stoppage time and wins 3-1. Pablo Mastroeni afterwards on what went wrong.
Does it seem like the expectations for expansion teams has kind of changed over the last 20 years? For example, since RSL came in, you look at a team like San Diego, St. Louis recently too, coming in just looking like a ready MLS team?
Yeah, I think teams are starting to realize, when you build a team from scratch, the experience is paramount, right? And I think they have a good blend, but I think really their team is predicated upon their 2 pivots. They do an unbelievable job of controlling the game, which made it difficult to defend. The guys up front were mobile, and it just felt like tonight there's 2 teams that were egging the other team to come on and press. And anytime there was a break, there was a chance on goal. And like I've said for a few years now, is that the game is about moments. And we had a couple really good breakaways actually to go up 2-0. And when you don't capitalize in these kind of games, the momentum shift is so huge. But again, I think, they're a really good side. They're a really good side, and they played well tonight.
You mentioned a couple of missed opportunities there. They were really, really close, kind of uncharacteristic misses. One from Diogo comes to mind in particular. Is that just like in the heat of the moment, guy just kind of overthinks it, lets it slide? Or
it's tough to say. I think the great thing is that that he got in that position, and the unfortunate part is that we in both of those we didn't hit the frame, and that's a bit disheartening. But again, it's not easy. Scoring goals is very difficult. But we've got to take those chances. They have to hit the back of the net if you want to win games.
Unfortunate loss tonight. Do we feel like we mentioned last week, we have a lot of depth in the back line? Do we feel like we're at the point where we have our starters for the back line, or we're still figuring that out?
Yeah, I think we're still figuring it out all over the field, really. Because, again, I think there's been some muted performances. There's been some good performances. We have guys like Vera on the bench, right? And he's a fantastic player. So it's just now, I think as a group, really just, again, trying to find our identity as a group with quite a bit of change and chop in the earlier part of the season. It's really about solidifying that. And I think what solidifies it is results, really. It's because, again, I think at this part, you really want to build chemistry. But again, when you have depth, you got to utilize it in a way that makes sense for the team. So in other words, after a really good performance against Seattle, just went back with the same team. And again, if those goals go in, then we'll carry on. And now we got to really look at it, digest the game, watch the video, and also really examine our own performances as coaches as well, right? Because I think that's a big part of it as well. It's a collective, and we prepared a certain way. They did a couple things a little different. Did we make the adjustments quick enough? So there's a lot of reflection for the whole group. And like I said, when we win together, and when we lose, we've got to all eat it and really reflect upon our own performance.
And then before the half, you guys gave up that unfortunate goal. What was the talk in the locker room to come back to get that second goal?
Well, what we wanted to do is make sure that from a defensive standpoint, we were negating their central combinations, right? Because I think they do their 2 pivots really. They're one of the tougher teams that we've come up against from a defending standpoint. Their movement's really good. Their combinations are quick, and so we wanted to solidify that And I think for the first part of the second half, we did a good job of that, and from that created some good opportunities. But again, I think this game was one of those games where it was going to be 5v5 on either side of the field, and the team that struck first was going to win the game. And it was that type of – it was one of the most hectic games I've been a part of.
There is RSL head coach Pablo Mastroeni. Now, the guy who did get a win, although he got 3 points out of 4 on the road, is Hockey Club's GM Bill Armstrong, because they went on the road, they beat Detroit, they tied Chicago and then lost in overtime, so they get 1 point for that. But Armstrong met with the media after locking up 4 guys to contract extensions. We're going to see a couple guys coming back for a year. Vemelka's going to be back for 5 years. Here's Bill Armstrong talking about the decisions that were made at the trade deadline. It cleared a little cap room as well, but no big names incoming. Here's Bill Armstrong.
Can we start with the Shea Weber one?
Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping on our end. I think it helps us be able to accumulate some cap space next year, and tied up a few loose ends too. So a little bit of housekeeping, I'd say, but I think it helps us, and we're able to get that done and get that accomplished now instead of waiting till the draft. So it's good.
Was it kind of the plan to have a conservative approach at the deadline, and what do you think that does for the guys in the room not seeing anyone leave? Well,
I think it's misleading at the deadline for us because we did a lot of stuff in the summer. If you think about the acquisitions of Marino and Sergachev and Stenlund, and then all of a sudden we had injuries, so then we went out and added Mata, and we grabbed DeSimone off waiver. So all of a sudden we've added all those people into the mix, and then our team down the stretch here is, I think, 7-3. So we're moving in the right direction, and you don't want to break up that chemistry, and you want to let everybody fight. If there was a deal out there that put us over the edge with a dynamic player like a Sergachev or something, we were all in. I mean, we've got all the assets, but we want to move very smartly, very planned, and very calculated through the process. And I like where our group's at, and that's the other thing. You don't really want to go in there with about 20 games left, try and throw something together and see if it works. You know, we're going on the ice right now with what we know works.
What kind of message do you think that gives to the group, and what confidence does that give them that you believe in the guys who are here now?
Well, I think it's great confidence for the group. I mean, they deserve it. I mean, our team's been through a lot this year. I think with all the injuries at the start, and then you watch how they fight, they deserve to fight together. And that's what they've earned the right to do.
With the 4 contract extensions that you got done this week, were those cases of these guys are either going to stay in Utah for next year or we're going to ship them out at the deadline?
I don't know. We really like them. You know, they're really a piece of our fabric, our culture. They're really easy guys to like because of their play on the ice, but also helping our culture and grow and become a winning organization, a playoff organization, an organization that can take a step to winning a championship. And, you know, Veggie was a huge one for us. The way he plays, he saved our season. You know, he's come in there and just done an amazing job. And I think when you're going out there and extending a contract like we did to him, you know, we know who he is. He comes to work every single day. He's great around his teammates. There's nothing about team. We know what we're getting. So that was a big one for us. I think, you know, adding Mata, he's such a professional. He's so good at his role on the ice. He just solidifies our defense. And then you see Cole last night. He blocks that big shot at the end of the game like he's all in. So to be able to reward him, and then Kerf, who's one of the best penalty killers in the league, and can kind of jump around and just, you know, patch holes when we're injured. Those guys are huge for our organization, and to be able to reward them with a contract and let everybody else know, hey, they're coming back, they're part of the team, and we want to move forward with them. It's a great statement for us as an organization to be able to do that at this time of the year.
After so many years of, like, I guess, tearing things down, taking on dead contracts, how does it feel to be on the other side of that and, like, giving away one to clear up cap space?
Yeah, it's good to be on that side. You know, there's different phases that you go through as you're building their team. You know, some teams right now in the top 10, you can see they're all in. Like, they're all completely put everything in, and we're not at that point right now. We're at the point where, you know, if you look at Logan Cooley and you look at, you know, Josh Doan and Gunther and our young players, we have to wait to a certain extent till they are becoming at the best they can be. And that's going to be a few years from now. That's not right now. So there has to be a patience level as we let them grow into becoming great players. And then, you know, there's a certain time, as I say, every deadline's different, and the stage of your team, you could be all in at that time.
How many steps forward has the team taken in terms of the rebuild this year?
you just want to get to the point when you're asking those questions that you're like, are you guaranteeing the playoffs? I know how you think. We've taken good steps. I like the way our team plays. I think there's been some learning lessons along the way as we blew 4-1 leads, and those are painful for us. There's a lot of pain you have to go through to make the next step. And what I liked about last night's game is we got off to a slow start, but when we got that lead, we played the right way. And those are from lessons that we've learned along the course of the season. So I think we have taken some steps. We're getting there. We're in the fight. We're right where we're supposed to be. It's with a massive game today. I think there's 20 game 7s left for us to play, I think. So it's on, definitely.
There's Bill Armstrong, Utah Hockey Club general manager. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from the Jazz, and we're going to hear from the Aggies. The Jazz lost, but to the front office probably feels like a win. And the Aggies did win. That's next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. We are brought to you in part by Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Well, Utah blows out Air Force again, a 40-point win. For more, let's hear Jerrod Calhoun, Aggie basketball coach, after they won their 25th game on Senior Day at the Spectrum.
Coach, congratulations. 25 wins, nothing ever to sneeze at.
Can you hear me, Scotty?
Yep, got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Scotty. It's been a little hectic with the senior
No,
day.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
No, things are good. Really proud of our guys, proud of our seniors. I thought it was a great crowd. Obviously, we got a lot of students on spring break. For all these students to stick around, that was pretty neat. So we'd like to do that senior day afterwards because it is emotional. And, man, I'm so proud of these 3 seniors to be part of them and their lives forever. It's pretty neat.
Dexter Acano, Ian Martinez, you look at Abin Gadarazzi, all 3 huge for this team, and just kind of spend a minute talking about what they've meant to this team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously retaining Ian was massive. Got to credit Jim Lobb and some of our donors that stepped up. He had everybody chasing him. Power Fours, Gonzaga, throwing a ton of money at him. For him to stay loyal to Utah State during these crazy times of NIL, we were still trying to figure it out. We're in a much better place right now with our collective. Really, really proud that he stayed. This place has been so good to him. He's been so good to them. And then Dex, becoming a fan favorite, Spence, really. I mean, these students just adore him. And then Aubin, he's like the gentle giant. There's you can't really say a bad thing about any of those 3. They came in every day. They worked, never had a bad attitude, and just incredible people.
Yeah. Am I on?
Yep, you're
Go
on.
ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks. Hold, please. Dex's story is amazing, obviously, with the Duge, and we've talked about it on air.
Yeah.
I think he's been the most consistent guy for you this year in showing up. Obviously, he hasn't been perfect, but on both ends of the floor, felt like he was the guy that you could really count on in a number of ways. But tell me, going into the tournament, I don't know. Can we go that direction?
Let's go. I'm ready to go.
Let's do this. You look back, amazing season, but going into the tournament, things are defined. UNLV, late game. Like, what's your initial thought? It is going to be a dogfight, right? You watched Colorado State, Boise State last night. It is going to be a dogfight. What matters to you right now as you look to next week?
I think, we had a tremendous season, right, Spence? You look at 25 wins. It's hard to do, right? You're really, really proud of the effort. The Mountain West was a monster again this year. We got 5 teams, still fighting. So until you hear your name called, you got work to continue. But to me, it's a chance to hang a banner. It's a chance to play in a tournament, to win a championship. So I think UNLV's, their story's kind of crazy. They've won 6 out of 8 now. They were 6 out of 7, but they lost yesterday in New Mexico. Dedan Thomas is out. Then their shooter goes out yesterday, and they're still competitive, still really good. So Kevin's done a tremendous job with them. I think Nico Medved has done as good a job as anybody in the league, if not the country, over the last month and a half.
I agree.
The month and a half. But it really helps when you have Nick Clifford. He makes you look pretty good too. So
if he can score 40, it makes the game a little easier.
No, but you got them. You've got San Diego State that's on the verge of getting a bid, right? You got Boise State. I think Leon's done an unbelievable job. They had a hiccup last night at home in a massive game. So there's just so many teams that can win it out there. It's going to be fun. Obviously, we're going to play the winner of Air Force and UNLV, so we've got to prepare for both. But I think this time of year, it's about yourselves. We coached angry. We played angry this week. We told them a lot of nasty things the last 48 hours about our defense and kind of our mentality. Like I think we were a little too finesse last week. We're relying on offense instead of relying on toughness. So can we do that in 3 games? That's been our Achilles heel. Let's call it like it is. We're an offensive machine when we're out running and we're making threes, but we struggle in the half court when it's a grind out toughness type of game. You've got to be able to do that in March. As you know, it's not going to be all fun and games where you're running and gunning. So I think moving forward, we're going to recruit big athletic wings, that can do that. I mean, we have 2 on the way. But for what we have right now, we need Dexter Akano, and I told all 3 of them this week, Dexter, Mason, and Ian, to play bigger than their size. Those 3 guys got to play really big. They got to get tough rebounds, guard the ball better, and then everybody else will kind of fall in place.
When you look at the Mountain West and you look at this conference tournament, I mean, it'll be a dogfight, but what are the kind of lay out the schedule on? I know you'll go down on Tuesday, but how, from a preparation standpoint, how you work with these guys, what are the next few days like for you?
Yeah, off tomorrow. We'll all go to church tomorrow. We'll get, just kind of acclimated with, UNLV again, to be honest. It was quite a while ago. So, tomorrow evening I'll dive into them, kind of spend some time with the family during the day, and then come here in the office and get organized, right? And then Monday we'll have a really good workload. We'll get after them a little bit. And then Tuesday we travel, and then Wednesday will be light. And, you'll go there Wednesday. The kids will watch about a half. We'll watch the full game and figure out who we're playing. And what's kind of neat is the herd. I think Dallin said they've sold 400-some tickets. If anybody's listening that would like to donate to the herd, I myself donated $1,000, my wife and I, this week. So if anybody's out there that, these are college kids that are going to Las Vegas, a lot of them, on their own dime. So if anybody could step up and help them, I know Nick Elison gave them $1,500, so collectively we did $2,500. I think they need like $2,000 or $3,000 more dollars to kind of take care of round 1 and round 2. I told Dallin, let's worry about round 1. If you don't win round 1, you're not getting to round 2, but it's to pay for the tickets, and that sort of thing.
Well, again, I'll send out a link on social media, too.
Oh, Scott, if you could, I don't have social media anymore.
I know, wisely.
Yeah, I didn't even know what Spencer's talking about. I saw that. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, that must be social media.
I could do that. I think I've got 3 followers, and we'll see if they'll donate.
You have Twitter, Spencer?
Maybe.
Do you have Instagram?
Do you want? No. Well, actually, that's not true. That's not true. I lied. I do. I never look at it, but once a year I post on my wife's birthday. I put a picture of her and say happy birthday. But Twitter, I do, X or whatever we call it, I do follow a few jokers on it.
I got to ask you a question. Did you recruit Justin Bean?
I did.
Yes.
I did recruit
Justin Bean today delivered an unbelievable message.
Oh, good job. He's in Berlin.
Yeah, he was live from there.
Oh, cool.
And then we had Tom Willis, a Aggie, talked to the kids yesterday, and I thought both of their messages kind of correlated really well together. But what I have soon found out, Spence, you're responsible for a lot of really, really good talent. So you might want to get back in the coaching game, because Daniels was hyping you today at the pregame meal. We probably can't pay you enough, but you brought a lot of good players in here for the Aggies.
Do you want to know what, Coach? Here we go. This is the way I look at it. You said you're going to church tomorrow. The Lord got me here. I got who I needed to get here, and then the Lord got me out. That
is a great line.
That's exactly how I feel about it. He got me here. I got who He wanted to get here, and then He got me out. And everyone landed on
Everybody's
their feet.
in a good place.
Everyone, I mean, from Duryea to Lou to Tarvis, everyone. It really was a win-win, and I really do view it that way.
If you really start to study it, I mean, Bean's by far right now, currently, not all time, but definitely the third best pro playing, right, behind obviously Keita and Sam. So what a great kid there, man. He was awesome, man. Great guy.
Justin's phenomenal.
You won't find a better human being than that guy.
I enjoyed it.
There is Jerrod Calhoun, his post-game thoughts. Now, let's switch gears. The Utah Jazz lost, which means they won because Tankathon 2025, they're trying to improve their lottery odds. Jazz set 9 guys against Philadelphia. I mean, obviously the Sixers are shorthanded. The season's a mess. Embiid hasn't been healthy. Now they've shut him down for the year. So the Jazz get beat, which is what they wanted, but it was close. Here's the best of the postgame show.
It's your Jazz recap here on DJ and PK 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott with you. The Jazz made it close with a push in the fourth quarter, but come up short against the 76ers. They lose 126-122. The Jazz were led by Kyle Filipowski and Keontae George, that both had 25 apiece. Isaiah Collier with a double-double, 13 points and 10 assists, but not enough. The Jazz come up just short. Let's get to the post-game sound and hear from Jazz head coach Will Hardy.
Because of points in transition and some second chance points, I recognize that there are times tonight where we had a pretty small group out there, but I do think we can do a better job as a team, rebounding as a group, continuing to try to maximize our physicality. Offensively, we went through a period of, it wasn't not passing, it was just making the decisions about a dribble or a dribble and a half too late. The part that I'll give the team credit for is they didn't quit. I think that they, clearly continued to battle all the way through the fourth quarter, generated a lot of catch and shoots in the fourth quarter. Flip made a couple big shots there late, but I'm always proud of the team's willingness to continue to dig in, even in tough moments, and not just fold. Turnovers continues to be an issue. We've got a lot of young decision makers, and I think that they are improving. We've just got to be a little more solid with the ball, especially late in the game. But, tonight was a tricky night, being, really shorthanded, but I do think that there are still signs of the young players improving. It's hard in different moments when their roles grow rapidly and they're taking on more responsibility than they're used to, and in some situations, more responsibility than maybe they're ready for. So I do think that the pacing and kind of the dosage of your development is important to your success. This obviously is not something that's consistent for these guys, where they're getting this many minutes and the focal point of the game for this long. So it's a good opportunity for them to also learn what that feels like, because all of them want to continue to grow in their careers. And everybody always says they want more responsibility and they want more of this and more of that, but you don't really know what comes with that until you felt it. So these moments are big for their growth as well.
We talked a lot about Flip changing his shot, I feel like, recently, but to see him make those clutch shots late in the game with that kind of confidence, what was that like to see as a coach?
Yeah, I'm proud of the work that he's put in. He shot the ball well to start the game, and then went through a stretch where he got some really good catch and shoot looks and just didn't make them, which is, that's life in the NBA. But to shoot those two late as quickly as he did, it shows that the work's paying off. I think that Flip's development of his shot is definitely one of the highlights of this year for us. I look forward to continuing to try to help him grow and put him in some different positions to see if we can maximize that even more. But, I've said before, and I'll say again, Flip deserves all the credit because he's the one that's doing the work. It's not just the physical work, but it's mentally taxing to do what he's doing and to stick with it even when you miss. So I'm really proud of his effort.
Have you seen Keontae draw fouls and just get to the line to get easy buckets?
Yeah, Keontae's done a good job of playing in straight lines. He's pretty shifty with the ball. He's good at getting his defender leaning, and then he plays in straight lines. He obviously was the beneficiary tonight of getting fouled, shooting some jump shots, which always helps. But I do think that overall, one of his best offensive weapons at this point in his career is his ability to get fouled. He does a good job with the timing of his gather. I think he's studied a lot of the elite players in the NBA and some things that they do to draw fouls. So it's definitely a part of his game that's really helping him, because some nights the jump shots aren't going in. And when you look at the best players around the league, it's not always just about their field goals made that lead to big scoring nights, but the free throw line is usually a big part of that.
There is Jazz head coach Will Hardy. The Jazz fall to the 76ers last night, 126-122. Road back-to-backs for the Jazz. They're back at it again tonight, taking on the Boston Celtics. That game will tip off at 5:30. Pre-game coverage begins at 4:30.
All right, there's the best of the post-game show. When we come back, we turn our attention to the Utes and Cougars. BYU wins the regular season finale on senior night in Provo. Now they're off to the Big 12 tournament, so are the Utes for that matter. BYU's going with a double bye. So how about that? We'll get to that next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Well, BYU beats Utah in the rivalry game to end the regular season. They split their two games head-to-head as both teams went home. BYU now well-positioned in the Big 12 tournament. After the game, Trey Stewart talking about how much he really, really doesn't like the Utes. You'll hear for yourself. Dawson Baker and Mihailo Boskovic also joining him in the postgame. Here they are.
Dawson, did you feel like in that first half there was a need for you to come in and score some points?
Yeah, I think honestly just how my game is designed, that's kind of the need that I feel. And so every game I'm always looking to do that, just get the offense going, creating shots, making shots. And so no matter the game, the situation, that's kind of what I do on this team. So, yeah.
Dawson, like you mentioned, your team was, off to a little bit of a rough start from three. What helped you to stay poised and connect on a lot of your shots and come in clutch for your team?
Yeah, I think it helped coming off the bench in that situation. I know guys were really amped. It was a big game, senior night, so a lot of guys were super amped and jittery. So I'll be able to let the game settle a little bit, come in, and adjust from that. Seeing that was big, and just trusting my shot, trusting the work I put in, and it paid off.
Trey, during this surge where you guys won 8 games in a row, what's really come together for this team that's opening doors to even make that kind of surge possible? What's changed from early in the season to now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say as much of a change. It's just, KY talks about all the time is pounding that rock. It's just like we're all coming in. We had one of the best practices, the best energy in practice the other day. So I just think we're all sticking together. We're all understanding our roles. Like Dawson says, we call him Dawson Baker, shot maker for a reason. So everybody knows their role on the team, and they come in and they do that job.
How are you feeling on senior night?
It's crazy. They always say, oh, man, it comes up fast. And you're like, no, it's not. It's taking forever. This day is going by slow. But I'm just so blessed I got to play in front of all you in this amazing environment. You look up, and just everyone's cheering. It's just one of the best environments in college basketball. So beyond blessed and grateful.
And then this question could be for any of you guys, but it's first regular season wrap-up under head coach Kevin Young. So just how do you guys just take me through a prideful moment this season where he kind of helped you guys get to be this 23-8 team.
Yeah, I think we hit a turning point 3 games into Big 12. It was like 1-2, 1-3, something like that. And we just said that's not us. We know we can do better, and we're gonna figure out how we're gonna win the games. So, every day coming in, working on that stuff helped. We figured it out. Eventually, you see that the results, 7 wins in a row. So, yeah.
It's also like a crazy credit to like our coaching staff.
Yeah.
Because again, we've had like a couple rough first halves, but then our adjustments after that have been great. So it's kind of like first half of the season, we were kind of understanding things. They were understanding the environment of college basketball, and then our coaches have a lot of experience. Like it's ridiculous. But then all of a sudden they come in and just make adjustments at halftime, and then we come out and drop 50 points in the second half. So
Yeah, I think to add to that, we had a lot of guys that just stayed ready through the course of the year, which has been big for us. We saw a lot of adjustments in playing time and different matchups and lineups and all of that. It's kind of helped us kind of found ways to win. And so just a credit to a lot of the guys that kind of just stayed ready, stayed the course, and just continued to put in the work despite the outcome sometimes.
Trey, you're a local kid. How much motivation was there to get a win against Utah, especially being your last game in the Marriott Center, to get a rivalry win?
I have a lot of friends. Shout out Hunter Erickson, Caleb Lohner, Jake Walling. They're like some of my best friends. But I hate Utah with a burning passion so much, man. So just to get that win, we came in motivated. They got us one earlier, so we owe them one. So, yeah, it was just could have been better.
Dawson, how excited are you guys to take your game, the team game, into the next level of the Big 12 tournament?
I think super excited. We're on a high right now, which is good, and we're rolling, and we've got to experience a lot of big wins like Iowa State, Arizona, and those are kind of keep us battle tested, and will prepare us big time come postseason and games when it gets rough. We know that we can make adjustments throughout the game, and we can change the course of the game through our energy, and our bench energy has been really good. And so I think we're all super excited. We're eager. We know how last year went for us, and so we just really want to make an impact and continue to win.
To piggyback off of every interview, guys, how do you stay focused now, 5 days off before you start having a double bye?
I think just staying ready like we always do. I mean, we haven't really had a lot of hard practices because, games are pretty close to each other. So it gives us time to really kind of dive back into practice, playing against each other again, which is kind of our strength. We got a deep team, so our practices are super competitive, makes us super good. And so, I mean, we got a lot of guys that stay ready. Like Trey said, our practice the day before this game was one of the best ever. And I mean, that just doesn't happen. I think it's just kind of a habit and culture that we have here.
2 more questions. Coming in the game, you placed a lot of double big lineups. How are you able to limit Assault and Lovegray's effectiveness tonight?
I think it's just a team effort. We were doing, we had a coverage already set up for them. So, it takes a team to guard good players. Mine, well, I forgot what I was going to say.
That was fire. It takes a team to guard good players.
Yeah,
like that.
I'm going to end it on that, though.
Yeah,
Mic drop.
That's fire. I like that.
Trey, last question. How valuable last year experienced the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City? Guys like yourself, Dallin, who experienced that last year. How valuable can that be the second go around coming up next week?
I mean, there's a lot of metrics and a lot of stats on like cohesiveness of a team and like people returning, experience. Experience is so huge when it comes to postseason play. And again, like we have a lot of people with experience on this team, so we kind of know the environment. I mean, we've been to Kansas City before. We understand like, we played the UCF game and then we came around, had that Texas Tech game. That back-to-back was difficult. So we are very motivated to kind of learn from that experience and do better this time.
There's Trey Stewart making sure we understand there is no love between him and the University of Utah. There it is. All right, let's get to the head coach now. Here's Kevin Young, KY, after the victory.
Another night for us where we kind of had to make some adjustments at halftime just in terms of how we were attacking them offensively. And stats probably, they don't bear it out. I mean, it was really just, for us, it was about getting to the paint offensively and then defensively rebounding. I mean, that was the name of the game, which we didn't do a good job on the glass. But honestly, kind of pushing all that aside, just happy for our 4 seniors, honestly, to come out here on senior night and get a win, especially against, that team. We felt like we owed them one from what happened up in at their place. So just happy for our guys, to send them out of this building, which is incredible every night on a winning note. And, kudos to Utah for playing hard.
What did Terry Baker and Mihailo Boskovic mean to the team and the win, especially in that first half?
Yeah, I mean, like as you guys know, we feel like we have a lot of depth in our locker room. So, on a given night, we can have different guys step up and lead us, in the scoring. Dawson's a guy who, probably deserves more minutes. And the one thing that makes me at least feel better, knowing that he does deserve more minutes, is when he comes in, I try to go to him. I try to call his number as much as I can because he's a guy that can deliver. So it just gives us, I think another punch. But I think with our group, it's hard to – you can't guard it all. You can't prepare for it all. You can't scout it all. And so I think we have multiple guys that benefit from that, those two included.
You guys are plus 18 in points in the paint, far different than what happened last time against Utah. What was different maybe in the scout going into this one?
Honestly, it was hard to draw a lot of comparisons from that first game because it felt like it was so long ago. We feel like we're a completely different team from that time. But I just think, when our group decides that we're going to do something offensively, we usually can put our mind to doing it. I thought the way Richie came out of the locker room at halftime and, just ducked his head and got 2 layups in transition, that's what we talked about. He did the exact same thing against West Virginia. So, I've said this before, but, we have to adjust to how teams are guarding us. Teams are, I think, nervous about the three-point shooting. And so hopefully it doesn't take us a half to figure it out like it did in West Virginia this game. But that for me was the difference.
What adjustments did you make for Ezra? He obviously started off hot and then you guys were cool down.
Yeah. So that was, we went to, a little bit of a cross match where we, we're basically guarding their center with Yegor, our point guard, and then put Kaba on Asar. I thought that neutralized him pretty good. And, Lovering wasn't able to hurt us like he was up at their place. So that was kind of the difference.
Coach, this was 8 in a row for you guys. What does that do for your confidence going into the conference tournament?
I think our group is confident because of obviously the wins, as you pointed out, but just the way they work. The practice that we had yesterday was one of the most impressive things I've seen since I've been coaching. And I'm not trying to say that with an exaggeration. These guys were so dialed in and so intense yesterday. That was I feel like they're just mentally in a space that they're ready to take the world on, which as a head coach is a good feeling.
Given the offensive struggles that you guys had in the first half, how much did it alter or change momentum to have Kaba and Dallin score on back-to-back possessions to end the half?
That was huge. No, it's a great point. And that's something that we've done. I got to give Chris Burgess a lot of credit for he's kind of in charge of our, late clock management in those 2-for-1 situations. So if you really studied that whole sequence, that was a very good job of Burge having me dialed in on when to shoot, when to call the timeout, what kind of play to draw up. Then we fouled them on purpose so we could then get the last shot. It was a masterclass by him in having me ready, which, I rely on my staff to do that type of stuff. So that was just great all around.
At the time of the Utah loss, you guys were 2-4 in conference play. Since then, you've been one of the hottest teams in the country. Do you view that game against Utah in January as a turning point on the season at all?
I wouldn't say that. No, I think the turning point for us was halftime at UCF, just in terms of what we talked about in the locker room. And, we haven't looked back and the thing we tried to address, which for me was what was holding us back the most.
Only 10 turnovers tonight, Coach. Speak to how good you guys were with taking care of the ball tonight.
Yeah, obviously after the Iowa State game, that was something we wanted to be better at. This is not a team that pressures you as much as some of the other teams in our league. But nonetheless, for us, it's all the bottom line for BYU basketball is turnover control and rebound control. If we are good in those two areas, I think we can beat anybody in the country. So it's just those two areas of stuff that we talk about constantly.
Coach Young, you just made it through your first regular season at the helm of BYU basketball. Just 23-8. Just how do you assess your regular season, and just what are you proud of accomplishing at this point?
I'm proud of the fact that we started out 1-3, then 2-4, and then didn't melt down. We just came into work every day and try to be a solution-oriented type of group. Led by me and then our staff, but the players, they bought into that. And, I told them, I said, look, the sun's still coming up the next day, when we had that poor record. And just a real, I think, testament to just staying the course, and just trying to get better, honestly. I know that sounds cliche in sports, but that's just exactly what we did. So that's what I'm the most proud of.
At the beginning of the season, is this where you thought you would be, fourth in the conference? How is this team kind of met your expectations going into the season?
Yeah, I have a weird relationship with expectations. I think they're very limiting. And so I never really put a benchmark on what I thought we could or couldn't do, but, it became pretty obvious for me early that I felt like we could be a good basketball team. And then the more I saw other teams in the league and in the country, I felt like we have what it takes to be one of the best teams in the country. So what that means when it comes out in the wash, I never really put anything on. I really am super, just tunnel vision focused on just trying to help our guys get better every day. And that's just been the recipe for us.
How much emphasis do you put on winning the rivalry game, and was there extra motivation to get this one after the loss up in Salt Lake?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I talked about with our group. I just hey, these guys beat us up there. we don't really need to say much else. We need to go win this game strictly because of that. And so I think that was, resonated with our group.
Two more questions. Obviously, excuse me, $500 before you guys play again Thursday. I know the game just ended. How would you like to go about these next 5 days not having to play again?
It's interesting. It reminds me of, you guys don't care about this, but all my references come from the NBA, so that's all I got for you, man. The play-in tournament. Usually, most of my career was like pre-playing, and you knew who you were getting ready to play. You could get it all kind of dialed. Play-in tournament, change that. This is kind of what that feels like. Not knowing, we won't know who we're gonna play until like 1:30 before the day we're supposed to play them at 11:30. That's insane. That's actually insane. So, I think for me it's more about obviously trying to forecast who we think it's gonna be and get some things dialed in there, but. I think, what we have to be the best version of ourselves regardless of who we're playing. So there's plenty of things that we can tighten the screws on, and that'll be kind of the mentality as we go through it.
What were the emotions for you experiencing your first senior night with guys that bought into your vision in this program? What were the experience for you?
It really didn't hit me until pre-game I came down here, and I happened to walk past Trevin, and he was kind of doing his thing, and it just – that's when it kind of hit me. You know what I mean? That'll be his last time in this building playing. So, we've, in short order been able to make some really close relationships with, when I say we, kind of my whole family, with all 4 of those guys, and I think they all mean something different, but what they've all done in their own way is just kind of give us a level of toughness, and that's something that I really respect about all those guys. Like kind of what Trey's gone through this year, bouncing back after being completely out of the rotation. Now he's giving us key minutes. That says a lot about him. Same kind of thing with Mawut. We brought him in here highly touted as a defender, and it just kind of didn't go his way early on. He kind of stayed the course. Foose is a guy who's in all the history books here with field goal percentage, this and that. We bring Kaba in, and he doesn't bat an eye. He's able to take hey, we're going to rely on you, and he goes and gets his 20 and 10 to nights where it's Kaba's night or Mihai's night. So the selflessness, from him is super impressive. And then Trev's been, Trev's one of our captains. He's a guy I've personally relied on quite a bit just to kind of navigate this particular group. I love that guy. I think he's he's got a bright future in coaching if he ever wants to go into it. So I may have to talk to Tatum and see if she's cool with that. But I love those guys and just feel fortunate to have coached them. But as I told them in the locker room, like I think I may have just said it, we got a fun road ahead of us, and those guys will be a huge part of it.
There is BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
The part that I'll give the team credit for is they didn't quit. I think that they clearly continued to battle all the way through the fourth quarter, generated a lot of catch and shoots in the fourth quarter. I'm always proud of the team's willingness to continue to dig in, even in tough moments, and not just fold.
And PK's proud of the way they lost by 4 points. Play some good basketball, have some good possessions, have the young guys improve. Let's keep that losing going, right, PK?
Well, keep the losing going, but I take nothing from that game. I mean, Philadelphia, do you know who Gershon Yabusele is, Justin Edwards, Alex Reese, Adin Bona? Butler played here for a little bit. Jeff Dowlin, Ricky Council. Is he Craig Council's brother?
Yeah, Craig Council's little brother. What I took from that, because I thought the same thing you did, what it reminded me of is the Padres, not of the last 5 years, but if you go back like 10, 15 years, they had a run there where for 10 years they brought in guys, and I mean, they were major league guys, and the joke became they were quadruple A. You know, they were better than the AAA guys. They were major league, but they weren't going to do anything. They were going to go 65 and 97 or whatever. And you could tell by looking at the roster. And I thought, these guys are better than G League guys, but The
They
stars
G
are
League
out.
guys.
The stars are out. The recognizable guys are out. You got guy 13 on the roster playing guy 14 on the roster, and
That
I
was
thought
a
of the
summer
old
league game.
quadruple A. Yeah.
I took absolutely nothing from that game. Oh, they battled hard. What they freaking do? Who cares? Battled hard against guys who don't belong in the league. But I'm fine with it because it's the race to the bottom.
And now, here come the Boston Celtics. Markkanen, Collins, and Clarkson out, but the other guys can play. They can put Colin Sexton in this one. They can put Walker Kessler in this one.
Well, I don't know who Boston has, so I have to see who Boston has available because this is the NBA, and you never know who's available from game to game. If Boston has their guys, then the Jazz can play whoever they want.
Tip-off at 5:30. 4:30, Jake Scott and Tim Lacombe will be on the air with the pregame show right here on The Zone.
Hashtag NBA.
Loads missed. Allen stuffed it home on the putback.
Big time play, big fella.
Well, Jerrod Allen off the Jerome miss quiets the crowd somewhat, 76-70.
Has numbers, surveys it, but pulls up and finds Durant, who skips it over to Royce O'Neal in the corner for three, and Royce O'Neal knocks home that three. And finally, the Suns get a little separation here down the stretch. They lead it by 16. It's a 118-102 game on the strength of the O'Neal three.
Highlights from around the NBA. The Thunder, with the best record in the West, beat the Denver Nuggets. They get them 127-103. Nikola Jokic making NBA history on Friday night with a 30-20-20 game. 31 points, 21 rebounds, 22 assists. Had never been done before. Everything goes through him, and he piles up the stats and is unstoppable. But as good as he is, then they turn around on Sunday, and the Thunder win easily. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 40 points. I know we have our doubts about them because we haven't seen them do it in the playoffs, but it's like they're trying to send a message. They had that one circled. Bring their best game.
Yeah, I was at home. I mean, they go back, I think, tonight or tomorrow at Denver, so I'm not going to go too crazy about what happens in March.
Kawhi Leonard hit a game winner at the buzzer. The Clippers beat the Kings 111-110. Those are two teams that look like they're probably headed for the play-in tournament. We'll see if they can get hot and get out of that mix, but that looks like where those two are headed. LeBron James, groin strain, out a week or two. He'll be reevaluated. We'll see how this goes. Just when everything was going great for the Lakers. Talk to anybody down there in Lakerland about how worried they are or aren't about that?
I did not know.
No. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
I have a lot of friends. Shout out Hunter Erickson, Caleb Warner, Jake Walling. They're like some of my best friends. But I hate Utah with a burning passion so much, man. So just to get that win, I mean, we came in motivated. They got us one earlier, so we owe them one. So yeah, it was just could have been better.
The rivalry game goes to the Cougars as expected, 85-74. Now both teams are off to the Big 12 tournament. Utah will be the 11 seed and play right away. BYU will be the 4 seed, and they'll get a double bye. When you say how much you like a bunch of the guys, does that take the steam out of how much you hate Utah?
No, he hurts him with a burning passion. That's all I heard. That's all I heard. Everything else, a burning passion. That reminds me every day when I brush my teeth how I'm going to approach that very day.
With
a burning passion.
Utah State by 40 over Air Force, so the Aggies pick up their 25th win. They are 25-6, and they are the 3 seed in the Mountain West Conference tournament this week. And UVU won the WAC regular season title outright. They beat Tarleton State 71-66. Now can they win the tournament, the conference tournament, and go to the NCAA tournament for the first time?
I'll be pulling for them.
Weber State beaten by Northern Colorado, 76-52 the final. The Wildcats are knocked out of the Big Sky tournament. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
Lots of movement in the NFL over the weekend. The Seattle Seahawks trade wide receiver DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second-round pick. They're going to flop 6th and 7th round picks as well. And Metcalf gets 5 years and $150 million in a contract extension. So now they got DK Metcalf. They got George Pickens. So it's not like they're going to have a great quarterback, but whatever quarterback they have should make the game a little easier for them with those playmakers.
Yeah, I think they're going to have Aaron Rodgers.
Buffalo Bills give Josh Allen a 6-year, $330 million deal, $250 million guaranteed. He had 4 years left on the previous deal, but they give him 6 now. They give him more money as they try to manage the salary cap going forward. So, $250 million. A guy can really jumpstart Fireball's economy now if he wants to go back and pump that into a small town outside of Fresno.
You can pump it into his life is what I'd pump it into. I left that small town in the dust.
Myles Garrett will remain in Cleveland. A record 4-year extension that averages $40 million a year and includes $123.5 million guaranteed. So Myles Garrett is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Rams added Davante Adams on a 2-year, $46 million deal. $26 million guaranteed. Cooper Kupp said he thought he was moving along. This seems to guarantee it. And Puka Nacua has a new running mate now in Davante Adams. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Is Oregon made of money, PK? Dan Lanning, a new 6-year contract, annual salary approaching $11 million.
I think that Knight is. I don't know about Oregon.
Bowling Green hired Tennessee State coach Eddie George to be the new head coach after Scott Loeffler left the program to become the Eagles' quarterback coach. He'd run the show for 6 years. George, NFL star, 1995 Heisman Trophy winner, turned Tennessee State into an FCS playoff team over the last 4 years. Built it up now we'll try it at a higher level. Go to the MAC. Tennessee's going to buck the trend of not holding spring games. April 12th, Neyland Stadium, the Volunteers hold a spring game. Josh Heupel wants his players, I don't know if it's a big stage, but a stage to show their stuff. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Yankees ace Garrett Cole expressing concern over soreness in his right pitching elbow. He's reportedly been told he needs Tommy John surgery. He's seeking a second opinion. Big news for the Yankees right out of the gate. I suppose the strategy is do it now and be ready for next season, as opposed to resting and pitching, and then if you have it in July, it's going to impact next year. Just get on with it.
Well, there was some thought he was going to have that last year, and then ultimately came back to pitch 17 games and run to the World Series.
Dodgers right-hander Michael Grove will miss the season after undergoing surgery to repair a torn labrum in his pitching shoulder. DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
When you have a relatively young group or new group, is they try to see it every time. That's big learning for myself and the staff, is understanding, the players that we have in the locker room, and how do we take what we typically do and not put so much emphasis on the tactic for that game so that they can play more free, so that maybe they can hit more diagonals, because that's our strength.
That's Pablo Mastroeni talking about how to create more chances, big diagonal switches. They had chances, they got in behind, and Diogo set it wide, and Marchuk sent it wide. And when they didn't get the early goals and break the game open, sure enough, San Diego scores twice in stoppage time and wins 3-1. San Diego off to a great start now with 7 points out of a possible 9. RSL, which is the 1 win in 3 games. They are at Houston Saturday night.
Is playage time the only time you use the word stoppage? Is that stoppage used in any other situation ever?
They use it in rugby.
Stoppage?
You can say injury time, too, if you want.
Because it's really playage. It's not stoppage. They're playing. It makes no sense to me. Stoppage? You're not stopping. It's literally the opposite of the definition of the word. Continuation.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Golf.
Over to the 17th tee, the tough par 3 after this. That ball doesn't hit the flag. I don't think it stays on the green. It was traveling. Lead at the top. It looked like a decent lie, and Henley took full advantage of it.
Russell Henley beats Colin Morikawa by 1 stroke. The chip-in eagle at 16 vaults him from 1 back to 1 in front. Huge swing, and he holds on to win at 11 under. $4 million for Russell Henley and the win on the PGA Tour. Tony Finau in contention Saturday. Final round 80 to finish tied for 36 at 3 over. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
First of all, when you woke up this morning and you look outside, that's beautiful, right? The second is everything has been done worse last year. We cannot ask for any better in terms of our ownership and Ashley and Ryan and all the organization. But on top of it, if you look at the way the fans treat us, the way we've been treated in town everywhere, wherever we go, it's unbelievable. So we're grateful to our fans, grateful to our city to support us and embrace Utah HC that much.
Andre Tourney, the Bear, on the Utah Hockey Club. They are back in action tonight. They are hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Delta Center. Late game, puck drop set for 8 o'clock. Coverage starts at 7 with Hockey Night in Utah. The hockey will be on 1280 The Zone over on the AM side. The Jazz game will be on the FM at 97.5. The Utah Hockey Club back home where they've won 4 of their last 5. Can they pick up 2 points tonight against Toronto? That is what is trending. Brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach at 8 o'clock. Ken Pomeroy, college basketball analytics guru, owner of KenPom.com, is going to join us at 9 o'clock in advance of the conference tournaments. Where does he think BYU and Utah State are sitting? We will talk college basketball with him. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
BYU beating Iowa State. I want to say I'm sorry because I just didn't believe it was going to happen.
It's the biggest win for BYU in the Big 12. Iowa State, if the tournament was seeded today, would be on the 2 line. They showed they could beat a team that's at that level. They can go head-to-head with that team. Not only go head-to-head with them, but they can lead them by 21 points in their building. You're not going to have to play a team on the 2 seed in the tournament in their building.
Right.
And you came away victorious even after blowing that 21-point lead. BYU passed the toughness test. If you watch that game, you saw how physical the top teams in the Big 12 are, but BYU turned the ball over 29 times. It wasn't perfect. They found a way to survive in a game like that by playing tough.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join hands at Scotty G Wednesday from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. Question of the morning. BYU rolls Utah for its 8th consecutive win. How are you feeling about the Cougars going into the Big 12 tournament? Seems like there'd be 3 options here, PK.
Good, really good, and great?
Yeah. I was going to go very good, but same thing. Yes. I don't see how you can feel anything worse than anything less than good about them. Won 8 in a row and 12 out of 14. But you can nitpick if you'd like. And this time of year, the nits that you pick might be the difference between winning and losing against a quality opponent. So,
hey, stop busting my nits.
Hey now.
You're always picking my nits.
Yes.
I've never seen that word broken up like that, like you just did.
Really? I have heard that. I have heard that before.
I have not.
Yes. Nitpicking. What is a nit? They're doing a lot of things right now. Obviously, there's a ton of winning. Now, the quality of the opposition is going way up. They're not going to get to play a lot of Arizona State, West Virginia, who else they've been? Utah, even the Kansas States of the world. It's going to be more of the Arizona, Iowa State type competition.
Okay, they beat both of them.
They did.
Bring them on.
Right down to the wire.
Bring it on.
If you believe it's about confidence, then I don't think you'd go for good or really good. I think you'd go for great. The confidence, it's got to be sky high. Is the defense good enough when the games tend to get tight, lower scoring?
Oh, to me, it's the question, is the offense good enough?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they've been scoring points in buckets. They've had a lot of games over 80 points here. And I think it goes back to, well, I think what you're saying probably crosses over with what KY was saying in the postgame when the coach said, when the coach said, we focus on the turnovers and the rebounds. Don't focus on the shooting so much. Focus on getting more possessions. You get more possessions, eventually the ball will find its way in the hoop. There are not many teams lately who held them under 80.
Yeah, but they had 10 minutes extra in Iowa. And then Arizona, ASU scored 100 points. Team that's going to fire their coach here in 3 days. To me, when they have these droughts, the word eventually in a 40-minute game doesn't exist.
Can get away from you pretty fast.
Yes.
And there's obviously less time to bounce back.
Right. And who are their big scorers outside of Saunders?
Yeah, Richie Saunders was the name everybody yelled. Saunders!
And then they go into droughts sometimes. And to me, their defense has allowed those droughts to not be able to be devastating and fatal in a basketball sense. And then a thing that I think really works in their favor is they don't necessarily need one player to put up big numbers. They have a lot of players who are capable of putting up halfway decent numbers. And if a bunch of them, you just take, for instance, the U of U game, they had 5 players, 2 of whom off the bench, score in double figures. So that takes the pressure off somebody like Saunders to have a big game offensively. Because in the college game, with 5 fouls, you can take yourself out of it in a hurry. And Saunders has to play smarter. He had 1 foul. Scott Williams was talking about it. It was near half court. Utah was going down. I mean, you're 40-some feet away from the basket, and you're trying to reach in.
Not the time to use one of your 5.
Right. You don't do that. And we've seen that. I've advocated that they need to go to 6 in college, and they also need to, if you get to OT, everybody should get an extra foul. Because I hate when games are decided by fouls and somebody's got to sit. And you take a look at Saunders. He only played 24 minutes because he picked up 2 quick fouls. And he didn't foul out, but he had 4. So I think that plays to their strength. They've got a number of guys that you can go to and say, hey, take a shot for us and hit it, and you wouldn't be surprised if they hit it. Now, for instance, Baker, he had a nice game the other night, and he gave them a lift. They were like 0 of 13 when he hits the 3 in front of Utah's bench. And they're all right, then you can breathe a sigh of relief. At least we got one guy tonight. Because you never know, man. You can be an All-American, you can be an All-NBA, but it may not happen for you on shooting. It's a very fickle nature. And obviously they can play foosball. And Boskovic has given him a nice lift of late, being able to score a little bit. When you've got a bunch of guys, you don't necessarily need big numbers. But if they all contribute, and I would like to see Hall shoot more. I think Kevin Young said that at least in the last week or two. We want to see him be more aggressive with the FGAs because he's clearly playing the best ball he's ever played. So I like the team concept that they don't necessarily need a huge output. If they get it, well, yeah, then they're really tough. But even a guy like Maggie, he can wake you up.
I see what you did there. Very clever. The scoring is going to be spread around because the minutes are spread around. With Boskovic coming on, that's the 10th guy in the rotation. 10 people averaging more than 11 minutes, but only 3 of them really playing more than half the game. Hall, Demon, and Saunders get big minutes, 25 or more. Nobody's playing 30. They're spreading the minutes around, so it stands to reason that the shots and the scoring are going to get spread around as well.
Yeah, I think Saunders is still your guy. When you need a bucket, he needs to have the ball, for sure. To me, he's the guy. He may not have to shoot it, but he's got to have it. And I'm, you have a little bit of concern because they've had a few games where they've had some droughts, and that's it. From here on out, every game that has a drought
could end the tournament.
It builds upon itself.
Oh, you think there'll be the here we go again?
I think there is that here we go again, but that's where I go back to their ability to defend is halfway decent with 2K in front there and being Godzilla. I mean, he's totally yoked and has got all sorts of athletic ability. He's not an offensive guy. He can't shoot a free throw to save his life. 2 for 8 the other night. But what he can do to protect the rim and just to intimidate. He looks intimidating. He looks like that's not a guy you want to get in a ring with, man. I mean, he is buff, right?
Quick assessment of the situation.
Yes.
Not so good.
Right, and so he's playing really well, giving them what they need. Even the other night, again, 5 offensive boards. I mean, those are all obviously extra possessions. And so I think they have the ability to D up to be able to withstand droughts. But, yeah, when that goes, I mean, you can just feel the tension from whether they're home or on the road, the folks that are rooting for them. You don't want to go more than 2 or 3 minutes without scoring. And so they do have that ability. And Demon is long, obviously. And he could do his thing. And Hall is just so freaking tough, man. And then they got a little bit of an ace in the hole in Stewart. If somebody's hot, you need to throw him on him if he's a perimeter guy. I mean, if he's a big guy, it's a little bit difficult. And you could see he just relishes his role when he's in there. And he's not going to get a ton of minutes, but the minutes he can get if you need him to do something defensively. So if they can have a complete or at least, close to complete offensive game where out of the 40 minutes they're not going 7 or 8 minutes, not in a singular stretch, but combined without scoring, yeah, I like their chances.
BYU rolling Utah for the 8th consecutive win. How are you feeling about the Cougars going into the Big 12 tournament? And Jason says, on to a first-round loss.
Well, they won't lose in the first round because they won't play.
Play. It probably means NCAAs.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. They have the double bye at the Big 12 tournament.
Okay, we're talking NCAAs. Yeah, we'll see next week.
Jerrod's talking NCAAs. I just want to go to the Sweet 16. Is that too much to ask?
No.
It is not too much to ask. Whether that wish will be granted, well, possibly that'll be too much.
Go ahead.
We'll talk with Ken Pomeroy coming up at 9 o'clock, but don't you feel like they're moving out of the 7-8 range?
Yeah.
Where you're drawing a 1 or 2, and you can get to the Sweet 16, but it's really hard. Once you're in a 3-6, 4-5 game, anything could happen in the second round. And you never know. It could be an upset. I mean, just because if you're a 5 seed doesn't mean you'll be playing the 4.
Well, Joe Lunardi has him on the 5 line this morning.
Who gives a rat's what Joe Lunardi thinks? I don't understand.
Yacht does.
Joe Lunardi.
Yacht thinks it. He's worried.
Well, it gives, as DJ points out, it gives him a better shot to.
But I don't need Joe Lunardi to tell me that. To me, they're no lower than a 6. So that's not any worry.
Because then they've got, you'd worry about the opponent. You wouldn't worry about being a 7 or 8.
Well, you're always going to worry about the opponent. Yeah. If you're a 1, you're going to worry about the opponent.
Going to worry about the 16. Don't be the second team.
Or I'm thinking the next round. Yeah.
Yeah, one's missed the Sweet 16. We've seen that over and over.
Yeah.
It happens.
Right. So you're fear no one, respect all.
There you go.
Yeah, you're always going to be concerned about the opponent. But this team has an opportunity to build a legacy. there's nothing that they can do in the first round and get beat to build a legacy. BYU's been to the first round 32 times, I think. But how many of those teams have gotten to the second round? How many times got to the third round? The last time they won a game was Jimmer's last year, right? So we're going back.
If you don't count that first 4.
Last time they got to the 32.
Correct. Yes, round of 32.
Jimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. And if they want to have a legacy, now's the time. If you go out in the first round, you don't have a legacy. You had a nice season, but you don't have a legacy. Nobody remembers it.
Put it on the list of BYU NCAA teams that bowed out.
Right, and especially for BYU at this time because, man, they're getting a lot of recruits in there just to at least check them out that weren't even possible. And so if they can be playing on the second weekend this year, man, that just sends a message that ricochets all over the country and even internationally, obviously, because they've got some international players. And he recruited 3 international players this year in Demon and Boskovic and 2K. And obviously, foosball was already there. So, yeah, what are the possibilities? And then you've got over here, I think that what they need to do, you would require a few more letters, but take down the Y on the mountain and put up, "You will not outbid us."
Well, it could start with that, and they could just build off.
Hey, Forest Service, we need a few more parcels of acreage.
You will not outbid us.
I mean, come on.
We're going to need part of Nebo.
Well, they had to buy a bunch of that mountain to.
Well, they can buy whatever.
I know, but yeah, they're not going to be outbid. So hey,
we hear this every single time with the temples. If they want the temple there, you all can pitch a fit, but they're going to get the temple there.
So buy the whole mountain, and as you mentioned, just lay it out across the.
Yeah, and take that Y down, and that's where you start it. You keep the Y, and you go with the OU.
Yeah, and you just go down there, and it'll probably go down around Spanish Fort Canyon a little bit.
You don't get it. Well,
maybe
maybe
the side of Mount
you
Nebo.
can do it vertically.
Ooh, so the whole trail. Yeah, okay. And thought of that. I was limiting myself. Thank goodness you were here.
Right. So every recruit, when he's flying in, can see it.
You will not outbid.
In case it wasn't clear, look at the mountain.
Yeah.
Well, you could, if you put "you will not outbid us" down the mountain, then you could do like a white S and then make a $sign from the sky.
Yeah, because when they're not recruiting anybody from the north, and when you're coming from the same latitude and longitude or south, you're going to come up and see that.
The next big recruit flying up from LA or Phoenix?
Yeah. Right. So that's the first thing they'll see. You're not coming from the north.
Okay.
There's nobody up there. We don't want anybody. Not when we get these other guys. Maybe back when we wanted them, but not now. Forget it. So you got that there. And if they parlay it to playing in the second week, because that's really, you get rid of the clutter.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And we've seen it here locally with teams that haven't won their conference tournament, maybe even bombed out early. But what does it matter if you end up making an NCAA tournament run? Because that's what everybody talks about.
And especially the second week, because it's overwhelming with so many teams that first week. You're just, your eyeballs are, you're kind of, they got like 14 networks and you're just looking at all these TVs, blah, 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 blah. Well, then it really narrows it down that second week and everybody hones in on it, right? Even, all the 24-hour stations or whomever, they really hone in on that. And especially given the fact that BYU has received unprecedented publicity this year.
Use the Tom Homo word again. I did that on purpose.
As a basketball program, they had a ton of publicity with Jimmer. But that was largely Jimmer, rightly so, right? He was all over the place. And he's all-American dude, the nicest guy. Him and Detmer, you're not going to find two nicest guys ever representing BYU than those two guys ever in the history of their athletic program or university, right? But I think this year it would be more on the entire program and what Kevin Young is doing because they don't really have anybody who is a significant statistical player in the manner that Jimmer was.
Not even close.
Right.
Not even remotely close. This team's got 2 guys averaging in double figures, and one of them just barely.
Yeah. So here it's on the program and what he's building, and with Debanza standing over there, and then they had some other dude from Texas as a 4-star, and they're getting guys in to look at the program that just you've never heard of that before,
right,
relative to this program.
Well, and the national story has quotes from the booster, quotes from the coach, quotes from players. Whereas with Jimmer, it was all quotes about Jimmer.
Yeah, I mean, he was in, and that was a phenomenal run.
Tell me more about the hallway.
Yeah, I mean, that was in the time I've been here, that was the greatest individual run in college hoop.
And I left out quotes from recruits, so. David is not looking at the NCAA tournament. He does not look so far ahead. He's focused on what's right in front of him. David says that quarterfinal with potentially Iowa State looks a little scary. They're going to be mad.
Yeah, but
that's good for a while, but then eventually you got to play basketball.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it does help
Arizona
you
would be mad.
Right, yeah.
The only ones that aren't going to be mad is Houston.
They're just really, really good.
Yeah. Right.
What you're seeking, we're really, really good.
Right. I think Houston can be mad about last year because they had a key injury right down the stretch and called them a little shorthanded. But that's not directed towards BYU. That's directed towards they're most likely going to be a 1 seed.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it'd be anything else.
Even if they get beat, they've done enough now to where that doesn't matter. I think that most of the top 5 teams in this conference have done enough to secure their seed. Maybe move up 1 if you can. The longer you go, or if you beat Houston, but
get a couple good wins. Beat Houston would be a great win.
Yeah, and they're on target to get Houston in the semifinal, right? On
BYU is,
Friday.
yeah.
If they should win,
right?
But I don't think they have to win to get at least a 6 seed. Just don't get smoked, and I think they'll be fine. I think the top 5 teams have done enough, and we'll talk to Ken here in an hour and 15 minutes, and we'll find out what he says.
See if he's expecting 6, 7, or 8.
Yes, and certainly those 5, the top 5 are in. You get 0 worries there.
And probably nobody lower than a 5 or a 6 seed for those top 5.
I wouldn't think so.
Right.
No.
They're all well into the tournament.
Yeah.
Kansas, Baylor, and West Virginia, they could be sweating. A little work to do.
I think Kansas is in. As I thought, Kansas would win
with 20
Sunday.
wins. And
they would win. I thought they would beat Arizona, and they did.
They did.
Yeah. So
they got their 20th win, and they finished with a winning record in league. And they're Kansas.
Yeah, they're in. I don't know about the other 2. Hopefully, for the conference sake, it'd be great to get them in. But I watched a little bit of that Baylor-Houston game, and they played them tough, but then Houston just guards the crap out of you and gets a stop or 2 and makes a bucket.
Nonstop with those guys.
And, so I would go Baylor first, West Virginia second, as far as extending it out, and as far as that goes. But BYU really has a golden opportunity to set the stage, because this is his first year, man, and the hype around a first year, it extended. I mean, he got the hype immediately, which is really, it's mind-blowing to me, because from the college basketball perspective, he was sort of an anonymous guy. You know, BYU, you got to go the Latter-day Saint who goes to church and all that stuff. So that really narrows it down. And we had certainly heard of him. And being in Phoenix, I'd heard of him. But the hype that he had for really not doing much on his own. He was an assistant, and they brought in Chris Paul, and they brought in Devin Booker, and they brought in Kevin Durant. It's not like those guys, I want to go to Phoenix to play for Kevin Young. They brought him in, and then they become disciples of him, and then he gets Demon and we're off and running.
And from there on.
It's really crazy when you think about it. And right now, at this point, he's backed it up.
Oh, and the money started flowing in a way it hadn't flowed.
No question.
I mean.
Well, it never had flowed.
The spigot was wide open all of a sudden.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They went from 0 to 100 in the snap of a finger. And, yeah, so now they've got all that they need. That's amazing to say, but it's true. And if they follow it up this year and create a legacy team, and they may create a legacy unlike we've ever seen at BYU. I mean, who's to say in 3 and 4 years, well, wait a second, around 32, that's not good enough. That's like Kansas. Kansas not happy with that. They're barely happy with the Sweet 16.
There are teams for whom that is the bottom of what is acceptable.
Right.
Duke has got to be in the Sweet 16 every year. They start celebrating after that.
Yes. And we'll see. Maybe when we get to the new decade and the Jazz are doing well, maybe that at that point, BYU will have not reestablished, but established a new standard, unlike any standard they've ever had for the program. That'd be awesome.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We got to take a break. When we come back, it was rivalry talk. But was it elite rivalry talk or was it a little watered-down rivalry talk? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
Accessing. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Alex Jensen heading back to Salt Lake City to take over the reins of his alma mater. I'm sure the conversation was, I'll take this job and I will win games for you at the University of Utah. I'll get the crowd back. I'll do all of this stuff, but I'm going to need this. And I don't know what that dollar amount is, but it's got to be significantly more than what Craig Smith had to work with.
If I'm Alex and I'm fully honest as I'm sitting in the office with Mark Harlan, I'm saying, you realize if you just gave Craig Smith all this and you put it into a roster next year, you realize Craig could probably win, right? Well, yeah, but it's the image thing. We need you. NBA guy, okay, then I'm going to need this. So this is actually really good news for the University of Utah fans because I do think Alex is smart enough to do that, knowing that he can't do it unless he's got the players, and players are expensive nowadays.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is Boston. Founder Tom Scholes.
Okay, Scholes.
Celebrating his 78th birthday. It's brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com. So BYU beats Utah and PK. A little post-game trash talk. Not a lot. BYU's Trey Stewart. Let's listen.
I have a lot of friends. Shout out Hunter Erickson, Caleb Warner, Jake Walling. They're like some of my best friends. But I hate Utah with a burning passion so much, man. So just to get that win, I mean, we came in motivated. They got us one earlier, so we owe them one. So, yeah, it was just could have been better.
That was sweet.
You heard that. You thought there's a radio segment. Yeah. Kevin, I'm sure Trey has his reasons. He should feel that way, Garrett says. Wait, his guts too, and everything else related to the team down there. Garrett, he's a Ute. Fully embraces Trey's post-game quote.
I love my mutual hate.
Is it a Jersey thing?
To a degree, but I think it's more a sports thing.
Yeah.
Among the fans. Yeah. I mean, you saw it. What was it? Was that yesterday? I think it was yesterday with Michigan and Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
They liked to sub out the seniors, and they kissed the Sparty logo, and Michigan was standing there, and the next thing you know, it's on. Okay. And then May, the Michigan coach, yeah, I didn't know it was against the rules to have our players stand there. I mean, all right. I'm okay with that.
Give you a little juice. Give you a little energy.
I got to admit, I am getting a little tired of after NBA games of having class reunions.
I'm up in that. I was just complaining about that the other night. A lot.
You got a lot? I'm not a lot
just,
yet. The reason why I'm not a lot yet is like last night I'm watching the game, obviously, with the Sixers, and the game ends, and those are nobody out on that court, maybe with the exception of a couple of guys, Philadelphia Grimes maybe, would be a big player in a playoff winning series. So it's like a bunch of guys who are still trying to make it.
Yeah.
And I don't really care what they do. So I haven't gotten to that level completely.
Okay, so I get why that game didn't bug you as much.
But that's what we're seeing virtually every night with the Jazz.
Fears, okay. But you can see it it's not just a Jazz thing. I mean, it's a league-wide thing.
I know, but I don't really watch it everything. I only really watch the Jazz to that level.
It's a big club, and what we like the most is when people really compete. Like every last ounce. Yeah. What do you got? Right? Yeah. And that's the thing about the rivalry games. When we get to the last 2 weekends of the college football season and you get down to those rivalry games, I'm way more likely to watch a rivalry game than one that isn't. I'm going to watch our local teams, whoever they play, and BYU and Utah here in the Big 12 aren't playing the final weekend. So, yes, I watch the locals. But the rivalry games, when you're casually flipping around at halftime or after the game, I always stop on a rivalry game. It was one of the great things about the Pac-12 is it's just loaded with rivalry games. And it's why when Utah and Colorado were put together as rivals, we all kind of giggled and shrugged.
I don't mind the little slap. I would do away with the handshake. To me, it's all a cosmetic. Mm-hmm. It's like putting a sign in your yard, and all of a sudden you're a civil rights leader. I want to see what you do. How much money do you put into it? How much time do you put in? Not a sign. And that's like the little blow-by handshakes. No. What they don't mean, it's meaningless.
So you want the full hugs, walking around, talking after games? Because that's when you find out guys really are friends.
No, I want none of it.
Off to the locker room with a head full of steam.
If you want to do it later, I don't need it's a show. I don't need it to see it on the floor. I hated it. I used to avoid it. No, I just got beat. Why am I happy? Why do I have to show good sportsmanship? How about, is that really slapping someone's hand and you go down and you slap 10 hands? That's a sign of great sportsmanship? No, it's a perfunctory thing you have to do so you don't look like a poor sport. Well, I'm fine with poor sports. You know, especially if you bugged me and you got under my skin. I appreciate that. That person. The Pistons took a ton of heat for walking off the floor.
I was about to go to that. Yeah, back in the day when
they were upset. They were angry. Their dynasty or their run was over.
They were trying to three-peat and they got knocked out, and that was it.
Can't you do it later? Do I need to see it up in the 10th row? Does that make me feel better as an American? No. Was it classless? Yes. But so what? You're right in the moment. Why do I have to have a 10-minute cooling off period, but I don't have to have a 10-minute cooling off period on that? Why did Isaiah Thomas, did he need to go hug MJ, who hated him?
Well,
and they hated each other?
To be fair, they hated each other.
Years later in the dance, he's still calling him a bleep?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a life.
And so if they would have touched hands, oh, boy, that makes me feel better. See, son, that's what you do? It's all for show. Get out.
It does establish a standard, though. Everybody else does good game going down the line. But Isaiah leaves early. If you don't have the good game going down the line, then you don't really fully appreciate Isaiah and the Pistons taking off, ducking out.
I was okay with it. Was it a show of poor sportsmanship? Yes.
Yes, it was.
But in the moment, so what?
And after the moment, when it was coming up to that point, I'm like, oh, I hope they get some comments on this and make a deal out of this. And they did. Well done. I didn't know if The Last Dance would brush over it or delve into it. They delved into it. It was good. It was
a big deal.
It was.
We made a big deal about it. And so Stewart here was, to me, this was nothing.
Well, once he prefaced it with, he's got, he names 3 guys he's friends with.
But that's two different things. Those are friendships.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Utah's life. Those guys are going to be gone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lohner and Erickson are seniors, right?
Trey's
What's
thinking,
the other kid? The other kid's not a senior.
Trey's thinking
Wayland's not a senior, right?
Trey's thinking the blue has to beat the red.
And Stewart is a senior. So you can go be friends with those guys. No, I'm friends with those guys, but I hate Utah. No, that was consistent. I don't think he prefaced it with anything.
DJ and PK, when we come back, Steve Cleveland, former Cougar coach, will join us. Ken Pomeroy, college basketball analytics guru and owner of KenPom.com, is here at 9 o'clock. It's conference tournament week on The Zone.
Good times. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. You can submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest. Listen every Thursday afternoon to the best. They're known as JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and the great folks at Beehive Meals.
The March Madness is here. Championship week. Conference tournaments. The Big 12 headed to Kansas City. Steve Cleveland will join us here momentarily. The hype is on. A little bit of a pause for BYU with a double bye, but it feels like a formality since Iowa State has a bye and ought to crush whoever they play. Iowa State doesn't know who they're going to play yet either.
Well, they're playing Thursday, and that's the schedule that, you can live with. You've got a couple days to recover. Remember, give them off on Sunday, obviously, and then get back at it and be prepared. And now's the time. Now's the time that you will create or miss the opportunity to create a legacy.
The word legacy had to come up when you said now is the time.
Yeah, it's just a fact.
DJ, PK, and Steve Cleveland joins us, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Steve, this time of year, everything gets magnified. It's been going great for BYU, but also one bad game can end everything. So I know if you put yourself in the coach's shoes, if you flash back to when you were strolling up and down the sideline there, you'd be happy about all the good stuff, but you'd probably spend 80 or 90% of your time on the 10 or 20% that wasn't going that well. So what would you be focusing about if you had a team that was 12-2 in the last 14 games and was rolling, but you knew the stakes were about to go up, and you knew some of the guys haven't experienced this before?
I think there's a couple of things you do to prepare, because you're right. You've got some new guys that have not been through this experience before, but I don't think that when you've been so successful, and guys, the confidence level is high. The relationship, between player and coach is high. I just don't think you go ahead and start messing with it. I think the key thing here is communication with your team individually as well as collectively. But I think that you go back and go, we've been really good here for a month or so, and there's no reason to change anything in that particular circumstance. I think what you do though as a coach, you realize that it is a one-and-done situation, and it'll be that in a conference tournament. It'll be a situation when they get to the NC2A tournament. But I think most important is to focus on what we've been really good at and talk about those things, discuss those things, and then have those conversations about how we can get better. And in terms of matchups, in terms of what we're doing offensively, defensively. But this is certainly not a time when you start changing things that have been working. And so I think the key thing is you're staying positive. The fellas know what's at stake. You do have some younger players that haven't been through this before, but you've got enough you've got enough leadership on this team that it's present, it's there. We've seen it, we've watched it. I can't imagine them not being prepared, or they're not playing for a couple of games. So obviously whoever they're going to play coming down the road, whoever that ends up being, it's going to be a big game. And I think sometimes when you're in a tournament like this, in a team that's a 7th, 8th seed or whatever it might be, they get a couple of games under their belt, and then you got guys waiting for them, and they're already relaxed. And so we see upsets at this time of the year because teams, they start playing and they get more confidence, and they're comfortable in the arena. And then, guys that are waiting to play those teams I think there's a little bit of an advantage to teams this time of the year where they've played one or two games, got some success, and now all of a sudden they're playing a higher-seeded team. It makes things interesting, and that's why there's always upsets, whether it's in conference tournaments or the NCAA tournament.
From now until the time whenever it ends, whenever that might be, as a coach, how much did it consume you?
It's pretty consuming. I think the key thing, too, that I learned is don't take all this on myself. I think that if you sit there and think about having the responsibility in that role as a head coach, that's a time you delegate and you get opinions and thoughts. And for me, when we started, these were brand new experiences for me. For a guy like Kevin Young, he's coached at the highest level, and he's obviously been really good in terms of decisions and what they've done to get to where they are. But I just don't think this is a time to make changes, remain positive, but be aware that, this is kind of a one-and-done deal. And every one of these teams, the top 4 or 5 seeds are capable of winning it. I mean, Houston probably you have to look at as the team that's, maybe best prepared defensively, but this time of the year anything can happen. So I don't think you make a lot of changes. I think you realize that let's just keep doing what we're doing that got us here. And but the one thing I've liked about Kevin is that with his younger players, and of course Catchings has been hurt a little bit, but it's been good to watch Yegor develop. And Coach has done a really good job. When he's not playing well, he comes and sits. He doesn't kind of stay out there. He get a chance to talk and watch the game a little bit and come back in. And I've noticed some improvement in terms of his decision-making, and he seems more comfortable today than he did a month ago. So I think coaches know that with each player it's different. You're talking about Richie Saunders and Dallin Holland, guys that have been in the program, you're leaders of the team. I'm not too worried about them. But for this team to win this tournament, the younger guys are going to have to step up and play. And it's been a different player games in and game out. You just never know who's going to play well. But I think they're a pretty confident group, and they've got a little bit of swag to them. And I think they feel like this is something that's doable. And how they finish the year and the confidence they must have as a result of beating really good teams. Bodes well for BYU.
Everybody wants to win every game, but at the same time, there is the bigger picture of the NCAA tournament right after the Big 12 tournament, and there's 5 teams that look like they're going to be top 5 or 6 seeds in the Big 12. They're in the tournament. They're nowhere near the bubble, and BYU's in that group. So for those teams, I know they want to win, but is there a little bit of the big deal is coming? Is it different this week? Is there you want to win, but there isn't the same level of desperation of knowing it ends the season? I don't know how many of your teams were all the way in when you got to the conference tournament. There's certainly a lot of seeding at stake. Is there a different vibe?
It is different, and I've had different. I've won a conference tournament before. A number of times where we didn't, and there were some upsets. I'm not saying it's not important because every game's important, but for me, getting to that NCAA tournament and being successful there was significantly more important than winning a conference championship. You take a look at Houston, who's won a regular season championship. Now they go to win a conference championship. I don't think that conference championship tournament is as significant as what their preparation is for an NCAA tournament and the seed they get and who they're going to play. So I don't. It is important. Every game's important, and but I think you get through losses there much more quickly because you move on to what is really the most important thing to fans, the players, and coaches. So unlike a situation where you get to the NCAA tournament and maybe get upset, those things stay with you a lot more than a conference tournament loss when you've got the tournament, the NCAA tournament just coming up the next week.
You talk about not making changes, and I think one of the things that I've been impressed with is the way Kevin Young has been able to incorporate an 11-man rotation, and now you got Catchings out, so it's dropped down 1. and how he's been able to keep guys engaged who are not maybe getting minutes that they want or think they deserve, but yet when they're called upon, they're able to give it make vital contributions. Now that you go in the NCAAs, when we get to that point next week, I'm wondering, does he continue with this? Because it's worked, so I guess you continue it. But
guys, I lost you there for about 30 seconds. All of a sudden, my phone just died on me. Go ahead.
The way Kevin Young has had a 10, 11-man rotation has been extremely incredible. I don't think I've ever seen that. I'm trying to recall. Nothing comes to mind. You keep that thing going as you get into the tournament, and every possession matters almost to the point of life and death, metaphorically.
Well, here's the thing that I think Kevin's done a really good job of is that, when you're watching a game and you're seeing it unfold and you're watching the success of this team, but, so much of this takes place in practice and in the preparation for these games. And right now, it's kind of like it's not easy to play 10 guys,
Yeah.
But I think what he's shown is that everybody has a role. I mean, Richie Saunders sat for a long time in that last game. I mean, there were times where he wasn't even needed, and then all of a sudden he comes back at the game and does things. So they've got so much depth. They've now got significantly more experience. And a guy like Mac who's been around, and even though people, early on in the season don't know who he is, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, this guy's a pretty good player. And he gets after it defensively, and you go through that whole roster where everybody's had opportunities. And so it's just not, just the leadership of Gallant and Richie and Nell and the guys that have kind of been there. These guys are hungry. And when they go in, they've performed. And credit to Kevin that he's been able to do that without having players upset, or they've all bought in. I mean, that's probably the easiest thing for me to say, is that they've all bought in. And if it's 12, 13 minutes, or it's 20 minutes, or it's 30 minutes, whatever it is, I watch the bench a lot. I know you guys do too. And you can see facial expressions and things, and their chemistry and culture is so good that and I always kid sometimes, you got like 13 coaches. We shouldn't have any issues. Everybody has their own coach.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's not how I coach, and that's not the experience I had. But at the end of the day, I kind of like the tighter group. I knew I had my 6 or 7 guys, and if we got a big lead or whatever, we make some changes. But I seldom, played 10 guys in a game,
right?
Unless we were up big or getting killed. So it's a different approach to it, but it's been pretty successful.
Alex Jensen is hired at the U. He returns to his alma mater. You know how this feels. You went back to Fresno. There's the job, so go ahead and speak to that. And then there's also the notion that you're going to do it at home, which can be a little different. So your advice for Alex and your reaction when you heard the news.
Well, I was not surprised when I heard the news. I had the pleasure of, getting a job at the time when Utah was really, really good. And so I watched it from a different perspective. But I don't think we're more prepared for this. I don't know personally, Alex.
Well, clearly his phone has gone bonkers again. Yak, you can go ahead and talk to him and see if you can get that rebooted, because that's I can't make it out. If I can't make it out, no one can make it out in their cars either. He did have the pleasure of getting the job when Utah was really good, and he got to play against Alex and watch him up close.
I've been thinking about this a lot with Alex Jensen coming back, and it's going to be difficult because the expectations now shot through the roof.
Yep.
And what he's trying to capture is going to be the highest standard possible, because he was a significant part of that highest standard possible, right? He was an extension. I think Fran Fraschilla put that out on social media, and he's exactly right, that Alex Jensen was an extension of Rick Majerus out on the floor. So it's very difficult.
Now can he be an extension of the legacy. Steve Cleveland back with, go ahead, we didn't hear your reaction to Alex getting the job and the pressure of doing it in the hometown.
Great hire. There's always going to be pressure. I think preparation and experiences and the absolute respect for him and what he's done in his career as a player and as a coach, pretty smooth transition. It's a great hire, and I think we all kind of knew that was the direction, and so happy for them. And it's never easy. And you know what? He'll change things pretty immediately. And the thing about it, it's never easy when you're replacing a coach. But I watched those guys. I was at that game, and I'm telling you right now, Utah played hard. They competed, and it's difficult when you've made a coaching change and everything's upside down. But I was really proud of them. I mean, they competed and got after it, and it's a tough environment to win in and all those circumstances. But that team, those young men, have a lot to be proud of. They didn't just come in there and lay an egg and the season's over, we're going to get a new coach. I was really impressed. And that says a lot about the coaching staff prior and the players and the assistants and everything. But Alex Jensen's a great hire. He'll have lots of success there. It's different now in terms of a conference that is as good as Utah was. That conference was not nearly as good as this conference, and he knows that. But I just think it's a great hire. I've watched him from afar, and absolutely, that's a home run. And it'll be fun to watch what they do and the guys they get build and how they get going. So, great thing for the U. But I was really impressed watching the University of Utah play without a head coach when they could have just kind of laid an egg, and they really competed their butts off, and it was fun to see that they hadn't given up.
That's some people, and you heard, oh, man, he's got an incredible rebuilding job that he's got to do, and I always think, hey, let me have you call Coach Steve Cleveland if you want to talk about rebuilding jobs. I mean, you had literally the most difficult one that I've seen in my 32 years in this community, and you got there in 4 years. It's a phenomenal job. The world has changed so dramatically that 4 years might as well be 15 years with the transfer portal and everything that's available to build your program. We've seen it in football. Teams go from awful to winning conference titles in 2 years. It's amazing that it can be done like that. That was unheard of. But what do you think he needs to do in terms of immediately establishing a standard? This is what Utah's program was going to be about, because Majerus was really good. If you're not going to defend, unless you're Van Horn and have elite offensive skills, and those guys don't come around that much, you better dig in. I mean, he set the standard right off. What do you think Alex needs to do right literally from day one?
I think you do need to establish that mindset defensively, and that we are going to guard people. And regardless of who, recruiting is a huge part for them right now. And his ability, his contacts in the NBA and Europe, and, he's got, like Kevin Young, who came from that situation and circumstance too. Their connections are really, really significant, and they'll be able to change and improve the talent level, rather quickly. But I think most important is probably stay true to the principles that Coach Majerus brought there, is that we're going to guard people. There's going to be toughness here. We're going to compete, and, we're not going to back down from anyone. And that's what Alex was as a player. I mean, he was just so sound and solid. I mean, I had to coach against those guys my first couple of years, with a team that wasn't nearly as talented, and I wasn't nearly as good a coach as Coach Majerus and the things that they did. But if I had not had that experience, I don't think we would have found that success. I mean, getting your butt blown out night in and night out against really good teams, that's not much fun, but it really, really made me work hard. So to be honest with you, guys like Alex and Coach Majerus and Andre Miller and those guys, they helped me rebuild the BYU program that under other circumstances, maybe not. And I had a wonderful, Dave and Heath and guys, our staff, we were connected, and those were good things. But how could I ever forget those experiences that really helped me become a better coach?
PK is always on me to make sure I zig when everyone else zags. Don't go with the herd mentality, because people get stuff wrong, so be ready to go the other way. So I'm going to run this by you, and then you can pump it up or deflate it or whatever. the expectations for the Utes, get to the NCAA tournament under Alex, have success and all that. I'm looking at the low-hanging fruit. They were 1-9 on the road this year. They were 2-9 on the road last year. That's too big a sample. That's not an accident. I think it goes back to the defense you and PK were just talking about. And they lost to Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, and UCF on the road, 3 teams that are below them in the standings. If they just defend better and win those 3 games, they are 11-9 in the Big 12. They're in the top half of the league. They're tied with Kansas. They're sitting on 19 wins. They're at least on the tournament bubble if they're not in. To me, the defense and the low-hanging fruit, yes, he's going to have to go get players and NIL, but if they just defended, you could watch them break down defensively, and it cost them games. Just fixing that is going to put them on the verge of the NCAA tournament. Yes or no?
Yes. I'm telling you, I watched that. I was at that last game. And I was sitting with 3 of my buddies and we're watching. I said, listen, these guys are competing. They're defending. There was a foundation there of coaching and, guys, people get fired and this and that and so forth. But there was lots of evidence that they were doing the right things. And you're right. Losing games, last minute, play section, in terms of all the different things that a coach does in terms of playing the right people at the right time and all that. I don't think, and I don't know enough about who's coming back and who's not, and certainly with NIL and with the portal, we'll see a lot of new characters in this team. But I thought there was a lot of evidence about a group of young men that showed great heart and competed in a really difficult situation where you don't have your coach, and playing at BYU were really difficult to play and win on the road there. I was so impressed. I just thought, hey, there's some substance here, and give credit to the coaches that aren't here, and recognize that Alex will be able to take this to another level. And, and they're going to have to recruit differently, and they're going to have to find guys in Europe and find different players. And, with the portal, man, anything can happen. You can change the team pretty quickly these days. So they'll be on all that stuff. But I don't feel like the University of Utah basketball just crumbled with it in the depths of hell. I just don't see that. I just don't. I mean, they got coached. And even though the coach was fired, there was a lot of evidence that a lot of good things had happened. And I saw that in that game at BYU. I saw it firsthand. And so Alex will do a great job, and we'll get things going, and they'll get better players. This is not going to be a long-term Steve Cleveland build from one-win game. I mean, they're going to step in and be competitive from the get-go, I believe.
I agree.
Steve, Thank you. We appreciate it as always.
All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. They're just not that far away. When Steve took over, BYU was a long way away.
They were.
And the rules were different. He didn't have the portal to work with.
No.
DJ and PK, when we come back, the Utah Jazz doing it differently. Is it going to work? Do you like it? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Travis Hunter said that playing both ways in football is harder than what Shohei Ohtani does in baseball. A corner and a receiver, you're basically using the same skill set. Shohei Ohtani is playing 2 different positions that are completely unrelated. Being a good pitcher has absolutely nothing to do with being a good hitter. That's like being really good at algebra and poetry.
You're Leonardo da Vinci. You're not Stevie Wonder. It's like, yeah, Stevie Wonder's a great drummer and harmonica player and guitar player and piano player. Yeah, he's musical. Da Vinci being the greatest painter of all time and maybe our greatest inventor. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, that's not the same thing.
What were you working with?
It's like Carl Lewis being good at the 100 and the 200.
What? How?
How is that even possible?
He's fast.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win tickets to Pantera in the heaviest tour of the summer, August 20th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. Got a question up on our Facebook page. The Utah Jazz did it. They lost to the worst team in the NBA.
No, that was the other one.
Oh, that was earlier.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over, isn't it?
Well, this one you had.
Walker Kessler has a monster game against Toronto, but then is rested against Philly. Is it bothersome to sit a 23-year-old or no problem as part of tanking?
It's bothersome, but it's right.
Jerrod, tank on! Here's the problem, though. I'm a huge Jazz fan. I had season tickets for over 15-plus years, but I'm a competitor. I played college basketball, and I can't watch some teams trying to lose. So I don't want to watch them this year. It's a problem, but it's the way you have to try and get better in a small market. I get the strategy. I just won't pay to watch intentional losing. So Jerrod signs off on the front office decision and then says, but I need to step away. I get that. If you don't want to pay for it, don't pay for it. It's your money, it's your time.
But does that make you a bandwagon?
No, because it's intentional losing. I mean, if that's your attitude when they're trying to win and they're 35 and now I'm going to have to do math, 47, and you're building towards something,
well, they are building
then we can go towards
something.
bandwagon by just not playing anybody, by resting a 23-year-old. I don't know that you have to pay for that.
He's gassed.
He's not gassed. I don't believe that for a second. I suspect he won't be gassed tonight. I think he's going to play against the Celtics.
Right. You can't ask a 23-year-old to go back-to-back.
Sure you can.
Have you ever made the trip from Philly to Boston?
Oh.
It's like halfway around the world.
It really isn't. Could take hours if you're on a bus. You get stuck in New York. Do they fly Philly to Boston?
Yeah.
It's
They fly.
They fly.
They don't take
Is that like an
buses.
hour?
This is the NBA.
Is that an hour flight? Is that like San Francisco to LA?
Yeah, you would bus
Philly to New York.
Yeah. And maybe down to Washington if from Philly.
But Boston's further north. It's up there.
Well, it's 5 hours from New York.
Yeah.
By car.
Oh, it really is San Francisco to LA. Yeah.
San Francisco to LA.
I'm thinking.
Longer.
I know, but I'm thinking Philly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a quandary. And Philly did the same thing. Because Tyrese Maxey's not that old. And they're sitting guys. Paul George is older, obviously.
They're tanking so they can keep their pick.
Yeah. And they Embiid hurt again. Same old story with him. It's unfortunate because he's a premier talent. So they went on that. I go back to, don't tell me you don't like it from a league perspective. Show me what you're doing about it.
They tweaked the odds a little bit, but they don't want to go back to what the lottery was when it first started, which is everyone who missed the playoffs had an equal chance.
What's the difference?
Because what?
There's no difference here.
There's no difference now versus then?
Not in perception, no. No, if you went to NBA fan and said, well, when they did that and they did this, is this much better than that? And they're going to say no.
If everyone had an equal chance if he missed the playoffs, I think the Jazz would be playing more guys.
Right.
And so there would be a difference. I mean, Kessler wouldn't be resting.
It would be a better difference.
Okay, I'm really confused now. It would be a better difference.
Yeah. You got 4, 5, 6 teams that are really, really tanking, and it becomes a joke.
Right.
At least there, it wasn't as much of a joke.
Right. Yes, that would be better.
So it was better than they tweaked it. Anytime you tweak something, you don't intend to tweak it to have it be worse.
Right. There have been multiple tweaks along the way. This is not a tweak from that. This is very different than that. What they tweaked was the lottery odds and how far you could fall.
Get rid of it. It's done nothing to rectify the situation. The play-in. Oh, guys are going to come because you want to get. No, the play-in is a joke. You go in the teams in the East at 15 games below 500, and they're going to be in the play-in. Do I need to see that crap?
We've seen play-in teams get to the conference finals. Actually, did we see one get to the NBA final? It doesn't feel like it's going to happen this year. None of the teams in there this year look like they can go anywhere.
And then this is a relatively new phenomenon with the protected pick.
That is relatively new.
Yeah. So now you have to lose to make sure you maintain because
you don't want to lose one of the top 8 picks in what's
Yeah.
supposed to be a really good draft, and that will be the Jazz dilemma next year. Because while we have, 19 games left of this?
Yeah.
Or 18, whatever it is. Less than 20 games left of it this year. I think there's pretty good chance we got 82 games next year.
Right.
Barring some massive trade we can't foresee this summer. I really think that's the only thing that could derail it. That pick's too valuable.
Yeah, so you got that too. And that they need if you want to get rid of it, you need to be serious about it. Not tweaks. Tweaks hasn't what has Tweaks done?
Not much.
Right.
Because you got the Jazz are all in on losing. Charlotte's all in. Washington's all in. Now Philly with the Embiid news is absolutely all in.
And they're in for a different level
Different
to
reasons.
keep their pick because the protection of the picks is a relatively new phenomenon.
But Toronto, Brooklyn, and Philly sitting on 21 and 22 wins, they're worried about their order. So even though they're not dumping to catch Washington because they're not going to, they aren't playing guys down the stretch. It's why the Jazz, when they decide to win, assuming there's no rule changes, it shouldn't be that hard to get back to 35 wins. There's so many wins built in, first with the travel and the back-to-backs.
No, who cares about that?
It doesn't. But when people say it's awful and they ought to win more, well, they will as soon as they start trying.
Yeah, but 35 wins isn't winning more.
No, especially because they're doing this to win at a championship level. So it'll feel like more night to night because you'll turn on the TV or you'll go to a game and you're more likely to see a win. Yes, but how do you get to 45, 50, 55?
Get better players.
Those matter, which is what they're trying to do right now.
Right.
Which is why they're resting a 23-year-old.
My thing is last night, don't tell me, oh, this was good, oh, they fought hard, and blah. Yabba Seal, dude. He was in Madrid last year. Justin Edwards, undrafted. Reese, never heard of him. He was just signed on 220. G League on Bona. Butler, G League here until a couple of weeks back. Dowlton, never heard of him. Undrafted in 2021, G League. Lonnie Walker was in Lithuania last year.
And he got 34 minutes and 18 shots.
Craig Counsell, they just signed on February 26th.
Ricky Counsell the fourth.
Right.
Craig Counsell.
Craig's cousin.
Okay.
Manager of the Cubs. Played at Notre Dame. Nothing that happened last night had any value. Last night was the worst game of the year.
Quadruple A versus quadruple A.
If that. And I've been bullish on watching the young guys.
But now you've had enough.
Yeah, last
night was unwatchable.
I threw in a towel. I started watching that thing on the Americas where they're showing animals.
Are they hunting each other?
The Tom Hanks thing. It's phenomenal.
It's
the way they did it.
It's on NBC.
Yeah.
It's a 10-part
it's awesome
series.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I went back and then watched the first one on demand, and they've got raccoons climbing up the walls in Central Park and showing between the bricks and stones where they live. It was fascinating. Yeah, that type of stuff. They showed a horse fight.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
how they get up on their back legs and kick each other in the face?
And how they back away.
Or do they bite each other? What do they do?
They're just kind of going all sorts of stuff.
Headbutts?
Yeah, and it was really fascinating to me.
I don't believe I've ever heard the term horse fight before.
It was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. That was better. This was the first time I said
you'd rather watch
this
a horse.
Sucks.
You'd rather watch a horse fight than watch the young guys develop.
And I'm all in on the development of Collier and Flipper and these guys, but I took nothing from last night against the opposition.
Yeah.
That was a summer league game.
They let Andre Drummond play 10 minutes, and then they're like, yeah, that's enough of that.
Right, and he's one dude you know. It's a journeyman big leaguer or a big man.
Right, but
at least he's been
still
around.
been in the league for a decade or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But it'll be better tonight because you got Boston.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up at 9 o'clock, Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com. Talking Aggies, talking Cougars, talking conference tournaments, and what kind of work needs to be done in the final week before the selection committee makes their decisions. Ken Pomeroy in 15 minutes right here on The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
BYU beating Iowa State. I want to say I'm sorry because I just didn't believe it was going to happen.
It's the biggest win for BYU in the Big 12. Iowa State, if the tournament was seeded today, would be on the 2 line. They showed they could beat a team that's at that level. They can go head-to-head with that team. Not only go head-to-head with them, but they can lead them by 21 points in their building. You're not going to have to play a team on the 2 seed in the tournament in their building.
Right.
And you came away victorious even after blowing that 21-point lead. BYU passed the toughness test. If you watch that game, you saw how physical the top teams in the Big 12 are, but BYU turned the ball over 29 times. It wasn't perfect. They found a way to survive in a game like that by playing tough.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. And now, your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer's strong play of the weekend.
Leonard, 4 to shoot. Kawhi for the win. Yes! Hot damn! The Clippers win in overtime!
Kawhi Leonard's game winner. That is the Chevy strong play of the game. Know it today after 3 o'clock. Alex and JJ will call for it, and if you know the play, you can win fabulous prizes. Kawhi Leonard at the buzzer.
Kawhi not.
The win. Breaking news this morning. Steph Curry has accepted a role as assistant general manager of basketball at his alma mater, Davidson. Get the pros tied in. Assistant GM. I assume he's going to have to help recruit some kids there at the end. Make a phone call in the summer. Invite someone to play in a pickup game. He's the first ever active player in a U.S. major pro sports league to take an NCAA administrative job. Yep, and I bet the second and third aren't going to be far behind. Tie in your alumni if they can give you a leg up.
Leg up on what?
A player.
It's Davidson. That sounds good, but...
Who could BYU and Utah pull in?
They're already doing it, though.
They got everybody.
Well, Ainge is all over the program every day.
Yeah, that's true.
He sits over there by Santiago every game with that Cougar hat that he wears, right? And I would imagine that if he wanted to go to practice, obviously he could. No one's saying no.
Sorry, Danny.
Danny,
like practice.
Not happening today.
Talk to the hand, Danny. The ears ain't listening.
I mean, all that stuff
man.
is, I think it's already being done. You talk to famous dudes. You know, there's so many ways you sell your program. I mean, that's the whole essence of Alex Jensen / Andre Miller here.
Bring him home.
Yeah. Alex is the most renowned ex-Ute coaching. And Andre Miller, that's it. You don't need to say anything more. Andre Miller. So they're doing that in a sense. Well, Utah's doing it to a large extent. But, I mean, all these players for BYU know who these guys are. And sure. I just don't know singularly if Steph Curry being involved in Davidson is going to make that big of a difference.
Because they don't have enough money for NIL.
Well, yeah, but what level of player are they recruiting? You know, that's where BYU is really set up. And I think Utah can get set up too. And I agree with Steve Cleveland. I don't see Utah right now like just being so far down that they can't. Because they're not so far down right now.
No. beat 3 bad teams below them in the standings on the road, and have a winning record in the Big 12.
Right.
Which, as Ken Pomeroy told us, that'll get you in.
So they're not that far away to begin with. You just got to keep talent, especially talent that you've developed, and you got to pay them. Those are the ways of the world now. Are they going to be the big dog in the way they were in the Majerus era? I would say no. But can they compete and have opportunities to win the games that are most important? Yes.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com. Next to get us set up for Conference Championship Week. How much can BYU and Utah State move the needle in the final week as far as seeding and impressing the NCAA Selection Committee? We will find out next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined once again by Ken Pomeroy, college basketball analytics guru and owner of KenPom.com. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
You know, we've had you on the show a lot, and we appreciate your time. You give a lot of insight to college hoops, and we'll get to a lot of stuff here. I'm curious, though, every time you update with as crazy as fans are, do you get a lot of negativity on social media? Are there people, can you bleep, there's no way our team should be ranked that, we should be 10 spots higher, blah, blah, blah.
He gets it from conference commissioners. Isn't that right, Kenneth Pomeroy?
Ooh, who are we talking about, PK?
Greg Sankey?
One Greg Sankey. Yeah, I get it from all sides, but certainly Greg Sankey was on my case this week because I hinted at the fact that the SEC, despite the fact they are indeed one of the best, having one of the best years of any conference in the history of college basketball, might just be a touch overrated and in line for a little disappointment here in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, it is not uncommon for me to hear it from fans, coaches, conference commissioners, whoever.
So then if what you anticipate, if it happens, do you go back, yeah, take that, Sankey?
I do.
Because if you don't, I will.
No, I do. I am extremely sensitive about this kind of stuff. And I kind of, in my own mind even, I feel like, especially when it comes to, coaches, conference commissioners are kind of new. It's a new one for me, but certainly coaches criticizing my work. Like earlier, week and a half ago, Eric Musselman at USC was on my case. And I take great pride in the fact that since he kind of made public comments disparaging my work, I think his team has maybe won one game. They were kind of like they were flirting with the bubble at the time, and now they're like nowhere near the bubble. I think they're the last seed in the Big Ten tournament. So in my own mind, I feel like if you come out against me, there's some sort of like curse that you.
Oh, I've always felt that about myself. Yeah. I'll get you back. It may take a bit, but I'll get you back.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I'm last man standing, man. There's been so many people have taken shots at me in this city, PK, and I'm still standing.
PK over here engraving on stone. Must get revenge. Add another name to the stone.
Yes. What's the point of living if you don't do that?
Yep. Got to settle all the scores.
Yes. So do you have a personal relationship with Danny Cannell or not?
No, I have zero relationship with Danny Cannell. No, I don't know. I mean, pretty clearly, obviously a football guy, not a basketball guy, and obviously not the most objective.
Well, he's an ACC Florida State guy.
Yeah, exactly. Not only is he an ACC guy, but he's an anti-SEC guy, I think, pretty notoriously, again, on the football side. So I just gave him some, kind of red meat to deal with, and whatever.
That's great. I love this stuff.
The smartest man in basketball says what I've been thinking for 3 months. Danny Cannell got you right in the mixer. Just in case. Just in case someone had missed it, Danny was out there with a trumpet. Attention, people of Earth. Look at this.
Yeah, man, you can't buy that run that you got. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
You have to.
Like Danny Cannell is not some sort of genius as a basketball analyst, but hey, if you're going to call me the smartest man in basketball, don't lie to.
Right. Might as well roll with it. What's the point of making a big stink about that?
Of course. Anything you say after that, I'm going to be on board with.
So we got the Cougars, man. They're on the come. Have won 8 in a row, moving up the seed line. What do you say their seed would be? Let's go extreme. They lose their first-round game. What would the seed be? They win the conference tournament. I don't see them winning it, but just for argument's sake, if they lost their first game, what would their seed be? If they won the Big 12, what would their seed be? Give us a range.
They're looking at like the 6-7 line right now. A loss theoretically to Iowa State, I believe, would be the most likely first opponent.
Yes.
So that's not going to hurt them. So they'd still be in that 6-7 range. They were to somehow win the Big 12 tournament. I mean, think about that. Like they would be the talk of college hoops if that happened. They'd be going into the tournament on an 11-game winning streak. Probably looking at a 4 seed at that point. Everybody would be picking them in their brackets. I mean, we know this, right? We know BYU has the most tournament appearances without a Final Four, right? That's common knowledge around these parts. So that would be an interesting scenario. I'm really rooting for that. You know, they win the Big 12 tournament. They're everybody's Final Four dark horse. With that kind of statistic looming out there in the background, that would be an incredibly fun build up to the tournament. And yeah, it seems unlikely they would win the tournament. I think I ran the numbers yesterday. Well, I know I ran the numbers yesterday, and I think they have like a 5% chance of winning the conference tournament, which isn't great on the one hand, but there are a lot of teams that have less than that. I mean, I think that's like the 6th highest percentage, and for a league the quality of the Big 12, it actually does speak to the kind of quality of the season that BYU has had.
In all your numbers, all the tracking you've done, is there any proof, or as it can be completely dismissed, that a long run in the conference tournament, somehow exhausting, takes stuff out of you? Or does it create momentum and then teams do better in the tournament? Or they're just not even linked, no matter – only linked because people are paying more attention now?
It doesn't seem to matter. NC State is the one that kind of comes to mind. Last year, I believe they won 5 games to win their tournament, and then still had the juice to get to the Final Four. And UConn won it in 2014 or 2011, winning 5 games in their conference tournament. So there are examples both ways. I know the great, I think it was Lute Olson, who was kind of famous back in the day for almost tanking in the conference tournament because he felt like it was a waste of energy and a waste of time. But since then, there's not much evidence it hurts you. And in fact, I believe there's still a factoid that if you lose, no team has won the tournament, having lost their first game in their conference tournament. So if you buy that, you do want to have at least a little bit of momentum. It's not obviously necessary you win your conference tournament, but you do want to establish a little bit of success before you head into Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the famous one there 20-some years ago was the Utes losing and to UNLV and then going all the way to the final game. And I think for some teams, if you got to the final game, how do you consider that anything but a success? And maybe the Kansases of the world and UConn now. With that in mind, how much do you see hot streaks, because BYU's on one right now, won 8 in a row, obviously, playing into success when the tournament starts next week?
I think it's pretty important. Obviously BYU has to feel really good, although I would say they've been pretty consistent all year. Obviously you can go back and you look at the Providence loss, and that was hideous, and the start to Big 12 play wasn't the best. But for the most part, they've been pretty solid throughout the entire year. I mean, they've looked like a fringe top 25 team. You know, those teams will lose some games, and they may lose one or two games where you're like, wow, that does not look like a tournament team. But they're also going to have moments where they have stretches where you can envision them being a Final Four team. So it's kind of been the MO for BYU. Obviously, they've finished the season, a little bit stronger than they started. But, overall, I wouldn't completely downplay what they did earlier in the season as well. I mean, they were grinding. They didn't look quite as strong as they have now, but they still look like a team that could turn out this type of run. So, yeah, I think it's obviously bodes well. You'd obviously rather have this kind of run than be stumbling and bumbling down the stretch.
We've looked at the University of Utah hiring Alex Jensen, and they won 8 conference games, and they lost 3 road games to teams that are below them in the standings. If they defend a little better, because they've been abysmal on the road the last couple of years, and start winning those road games that you can argue they should be winning, that low-hanging fruit would get them to 11-9. Do you think going forward, do you think this year 11-9 gets Kansas in? Does 10-10 get in the next 2 teams on the bubble? What happens to West Virginia there? And is that something that you fans can look at next year as a pretty consistent measuring stick for the Big 12?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with the Utes was, like, this year, you may have felt like they were close, but their non-conference schedule was just not very serious. It wasn't the type of schedule that would get you a tournament bid. The bar for them in conference play was higher just because their non-conference was pretty impressively weak. But that's kind of the beauty of the league is that, first of all, really, even in a down year, tough to win at Utah. That was sort of the deal with BYU even going into last year. I was like, people thought they were really going to struggle, but you always kind of knew, it's going to be tough to win at BYU. So even in a down year, like, they can post a decent record, and obviously the team BYU overachieved last year. But I think that is what makes the situation pretty encouraging. If you're a Utah Hoops fan, you look at the women's side as well. Obviously, it's a little bit different on the women's side the way things work, but the women's team has had a fair amount of success kind of right out of the gate. So I think that's the upside. Even in a down year, you should be able to post, something close to a 500 record in league, just because it is difficult for teams to come here and deal with, the altitude or whatever, and hopefully someday deal with the fans, and that's encouraging. And obviously, once hopefully you get some talent, you can almost run the table at home, make the home environment extremely difficult, as BYU has done, and then win a couple games on the road, win 3 or 4 games on the road, and all of a sudden you're like easily in. And so, talking about Kansas and West Virginia, like, for those teams, it's a little different. Their non-conference is better. Certainly Kansas is way better. And so, Kansas is obviously easily in the tournament. And West Virginia, it'd probably be helpful for them to win a game in the conference tournament. They may not even need that, though. Like, their total package is really, really good.
So you spoke of BYU right now, 6-7, maybe move up a little bit. How about the other teams, the top 4? Houston, I assume you've got to have as a number 1, but Tech and Arizona then, and even Iowa State. Yeah, Houston is pretty awesome. I don't know what the deal is with them and kind of their maybe somewhat lack of national perception. You hear a lot of people, of course, zoning in here on Duke and Auburn and being kind of your top national title contenders, but Houston is really pretty close to being right with them. We talked, I think, here about Houston consistently in the Kelvin Sampson era. It's been a tremendous defensive team, a tremendous effort team. Their offense has always been pretty ugly, dependent on offensive rebounding, kind of covering up a lack of shooting. But the shooting is better this year. They do have pretty good three-point shooting. They don't take a lot of threes, and they maybe only have 3 guys on the court that can shoot the 3, but they do have one of the best shooters in the country in LJ Cryer, and so it's a little bit of a different feature for them this year. So I wouldn't, I would certainly put them into the mix, the national title contender, maybe a half step behind Auburn and Duke, but right there. And
pretty much in line for a 1 seed at this point. Even if they lost their first game, I think they're still getting a 1 seed. The other teams you mentioned, Texas Tech has closed the season strong and it's really been a huge surprise this year. They're headed for a 2 or a 3 seed. Arizona in the mix for a 4 or a 5. Iowa State in the mix for probably a 3, and subject to minor changes in the Big 12 tournament. But I think the people got to realize too is that the selection committee, the deeper you go in the tournament, like in your conference tournament at this point, like the less impact it has on your seed, because the selection committee is doing a lot of its work on Friday and Saturday, getting that bracket ready, and they're not inclined to make major changes at that point. And especially once these teams get deeper into the tournament, you're not changing their resume that much anyway. So I'm not saying all these seeds are locked in, but they're maybe closer than people might realize.
How about the Mountain West? It's been perceived as a 3-bid league, as 5 teams battling for a 3-bid league, 3 bids. Do you think there'll be 2, 4? Is anybody about to play their way in or out?
Yeah, probably headed for 3. New Mexico, the safest of the group. The Aggies, I think, are the second safest of the group, and only out in a scenario where they have to play Air Force, in their first game, and Air Force somehow beats them. I think Air Force historically is 4-26 in the Mountain West tournament. I'm not even sure they have a quarterfinal win of those 4 wins. So if you lose to Air Force, you should be disqualified from the NCAA tournament. I think even Jerrod Calhoun would secretly admit that if you got him, off the record. So I think Utah was only out in a situation where they lose to Air Force. And even then, you might even need a couple of weird things happening in other conference tournaments to knock them out. And San Diego State's probably your third team, and they're in pretty good shape as well. They may need to win a game in the tournament, avoid a bad loss, but they're pretty safe as well. And then, you got Boise State and Colorado State. Colorado State, secretly maybe the best team in the league at this point, really closing the season strong and capable of winning the league. I mean, there are these fringe scenarios where they can get 4 teams. So if Boise State or CSU ends up winning the conference tournament, and maybe those other 3 at-large teams still hang on to their bids, which is clearly possible, you could see a 4-team Mountain West emerge here. None of them being high seeds, unfortunately. So, maybe not the year you expect a deep run from any of their teams.
I keep hearing this time of year that a BYU with the no Sunday play gets knocked down a seed. I don't understand why that would be the case, because there's enough Thursday, Saturday that ought to be able to offset that.
Right. Yeah, I feel like there's less of that. There's less of that sort of bracket maneuvering in modern times than we used to have 10, 20 years ago. I mean, there's a bunch of rules involved in putting the bracket together that make things a little bit complicated, especially in situations where you're trying. It used to be that when the committee set the bracket, conference teams could not play until the Elite 8. And obviously that is impractical at this point with the way the conferences have grown. And so they've relaxed those rules quite heavily. And there's rules about not having rematches from the regular season in the first round. And, so there's all sorts of rules here, but I think with the improvement in the process, sort of improvement in automating how the bracket is set to obey these rules instead of having humans have to go through with a fine-tooth comb and make sure all these rules are upheld. I would say the BYU getting knocked down a seed line is mostly urban legend at this point.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Although, PK, has your life changed now that the WCC now has Sunday night tournament action?
It's made it so much better, actually, yeah. I mean, out with the Cougars. Well, they didn't play on Sunday even before BYU got there, right?
You may be correct, but now they do.
Now they do. And Pepperdine with a big win, punking Santa Clara.
On a run, absolutely. Into the semifinals is a 10 or 11 seed. They're
riding the waves. See what I done there?
moving up that step ladder. Yeah, absolutely. I see exactly what you've done there. Did you know this? Pepperdine has three players from New Jersey on their team. Like,
that explains it.
Tough SOBs, those people out there. They didn't get soft.
The culture shock.
Oh, they didn't get soft when they went west and looked out the window and saw the crystal blue ocean waters of the Pacific. No, exactly. They actually brought toughness. That's why Pepperdine is so tough right now. They'll tear you apart if you let them. I feel bad for Herb Sendek.
PK was actually watching two horses fight last night, and he called one of them Ken and one of them Greg.
I did not.
Right.
That thing Americas, I was talking about that show. I don't know if you saw it with the
channel surfing away with the
wildlife narrated by Tom Hanks. It's pretty cool.
When the Jazz and Sixers rotated down to guys 16 and 17 and put all their two-way players on the court at the same time, he bailed.
Yeah.
That was too much. That was a bridge too far. When they start playing guys who are wearing reversibles, it's time to go.
Yeah, when they got numbers in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, I'll watch the 12th guy on the roster, but I'm not watching the 17th guy on the roster.
We did reach a low in that situation. With that in mind, are you going with Flag as your player of the year? Because I got my Wooden Award comes out this week, and I got to submit a ballot.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Big Shot.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah. It's got to be Cooper Flag. I mean, unless you. Now, if you want the wrath of social media, PK.
Yeah, but I don't put it out there. I think the SEC sucks, you suckers. I don't do that.
Not anymore. Not since the incident.
I mean, you're flaunting it. I mean, you're inviting blowback. You're trolling Sankey. That's what it was. I knew it.
It was all under the radar until Danny Cannell opened his big pie hole.
Exactly. It was through a third party. I mean,
that got it going.
Yeah, I know, but you tipped off to Cannell that it was coming.
Ah, nice. Okay.
I do wonder how he found out, because he's definitely not the type who is my target audience. He's not subscribing to my newsletter, that's for sure.
This is the time of year everyone becomes an expert on March Madness. And the fact is, you are Ken Pomeroy, so that's one of the places he went to look. He's just doing a little research.
Well, here's Ken Pomeroy. You may not have known it at the time, but that's who he is.
I didn't when I saw his face. I knew the name.
You walk around with a sign that says, I'm Ken Pomeroy?
I wonder if Danny Cannell would walk by him and know who he was, or he'd just be like, that guy does some good stuff.
Smartest man in college basketball.
Because I don't know if you remember, but we were eating at the Pac-12 little thing that was down the hall from the T-Mobile, and I think it might have been Mark Harlan, and introduced us to a Pac-12 official, and it was clear he did not know you by face. And then once he heard your name, then it was like he pushed me out of the side. Get away, son. I want to talk to this guy. I mean, you probably get that a fair amount, that people don't know what you look like, which is unfortunate for you because you're a very handsomely devilish man. But once you say the name, okay, then we absolutely, especially when we're in a basketball tournament, a college basketball tournament, no less.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, that's like the only place where it happens. You know, any other situation in life, people hear my name, they do not care and do not need to talk to me. But yeah, at a basketball game, people, on occasion, people will. And sometimes it's not, it's not flattering. I don't particularly, I remember that. I remember that situation, but that was many years ago, and I'm not sure if Mark Harlan wanted to speak to me out of respect, or it was a Greg Sankey type situation where he wanted to complain about where the Utes were in my ratings or something.
Popped you on the head.
Well, if you need some positive reinforcement, get on a plane, fly down to San Diego, go to La Jolla, because you've got UC San Diego at 39th, and I bet they like you right now, because that's at-large territory. In the Big West, not getting a whole lot of at-large bids anymore. That's about 35 years in the rearview window. So they like you there, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure they do. I mean, it's been an outstanding year for UC San Diego. Obviously, started with their trip to Logan, where they knocked off the Aggies and gave them their first loss, and that's when you really had to understand that this team is pretty decent. With all that said, they're probably not getting an at-large bid.
There it goes. Don't go there now. You made them mad. Good work.
Either way, they're losing their coach.
But
their coach is going to get another gig now, isn't he?
You would think so. Yeah, you would think so. I mean, it's been fairly new D1 program to have this kind of success almost immediately out of the gate.
Right,
is extremely impressive. I mean, really having a better year than San Diego State, if we're being honest. Although San Diego State has a slightly better resume, so may get into the tournament. But
they beat Houston, yeah,
exactly. Like that's the big one. But yeah, it'd be great if we could find room for UC San Diego's in that large team. But of course, they still have their conference tournament and control their own destiny, as the kids say. So they should be able to play their way in.
Okay, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you, even if Greg Sankey doesn't.
All right. Well, glad I got you on my side.
There you go.
Guys.
Thanks, Ken. Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com. You can go take a look at his college basketball ratings. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up, everything you missed in this show is next.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Alex Jensen heading back to Salt Lake City to take over the reins of his alma mater. I'm sure the conversation was, I'll take this job and I will win games for you at the University of Utah. I'll get the crowd back. I'll do all of this stuff, but I'm going to need this. And I don't know what that dollar amount is, but it's got to be significantly more than what Craig Smith had to work with.
If I'm Alex, and I'm fully honest as I'm sitting in the office with Mark Harlan, I'm saying, you realize if you just gave Craig Smith all this and you put it into a roster next year, you realize Craig could probably win, right? Well, yeah, but it's the image thing. We need you. NBA guy, okay, then I'm going to need this. So this is actually really good news for the University of Utah fans, because I do think Alex is smart enough to do that, knowing that he can't do it unless he's got the players, and players are expensive nowadays.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I have a lot of friends. Shout out Hunter Erickson, Caleb Lohner, Jake Walling. They're like some of my best friends. But I hate Utah with a burning passion so much, man. So just to get that win, I mean, we came in motivated. They got us one earlier, so we owe them one. It was just could have been better.
9 a.m. Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at trajanwealth.com.
I can agree with Trey Stewart there. I got some good friends at Utah, but I hate them with a burning passion.
Now do the other one.
What?
Well, you got some friends at BYU.
No, I don't.
But you hate them with the burning passion.
No, ironically, I hate most of the people there, but I love BYU. It's very weird.
How did you get this rep? Very carefully.
I'm in love with BYU hoop now. I remember you talked about it earlier in the year as we were approaching it, that BYU basketball would be something that we could really hit on. And sure enough, it came to pass. Now, Utah ends up being something that we can hit on here of late with the coaching search and coaching change, coaching search, coaching hire, and Alex Jensen. And that's the great thing about this job. You know, you worry about, what are we going to talk about? I mean, somebody told me a couple weeks ago, what are you guys talking about, the Jazz? Dude, we went 6 months with no sports. Had nothing.
After that, it's all ball bearings.
We kept our job and managed to make it.
I can still remember talking to Scotty when we were about, I don't know how deep we were, 10 weeks, something like that, deep into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they're like, Scotty, I'm afraid to ask, but how are the ratings? He goes, surprisingly, very good.
Well, maybe people were at home.
They were at home and they wanted somebody to talk to and something new. You just can't talk to the same couple of people every day, right? So
Yeah.
And he did say the streaming numbers were excellent.
So there's always
because it isn't just ratings anymore. It's ratings over here. It's streaming numbers over there. It's social media over there, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
We did talk about BYU winning again, 8 in a row, 12 out of 14. And Steve Cleveland did talk about just the shift here, the pressure going to the Mountain West Conference Tournament. Some years was pretty intense, and it might be intense for a couple of teams in the Big 12, certainly for the 8 teams. The problem is, in the Mountain West days, you could say, the team has a chance, and I think you can say it now. A team has a chance to win the tournament and play their way in, right? But really, you're at the point where you only say that for a couple teams. The Mountain West is deep enough, probably Boise State and CSU, assuming the other three are in, that Kim Pomeroy, who was on with us, is right. There's 2 teams trying to play their way in. I don't think UNLV and Nevada are good enough to beat those teams to the top of the league 3 times in a row and win that tournament.
Certainly not Nevada. I would give UNLV more of a possibility, but I'm only doing that if I'm comparing it to Nevada. The good thing about the Mountain West tournament is that you can flip a coin amongst 4 teams, and who's playing well on that Friday, who's playing well on the Saturday.
4 teams. You're leaving one of the 5 out? You don't believe in one of them?
Right now, my teams are New Mexico, Utah, San Diego State, and Colorado.
State. Okay. But not Boise State.
I can go with Boise a little bit, but I go with those 4.
The other 4 above Boise State.
Yeah.
Tall task for Boise State because they'll have to beat, we assume they're going to have to beat 3 of those 4 in a row. And in the Big Ten, okay, you're on the bubble, you're 10-10 in the league. Maybe West Virginia can win a game or 2, and that's enough.
Big 12, you mean?
Excuse me, in the Big 12,
okay,
yes.
because I was going to say, I'm not following the Big 10.
I'm not following the Big
much.
10.
You threw me a curveball there.
No.
Big 12, yes. I think it's Houston. Houston, to me,
is going to win that tournament because they're so good.
If they want to.
Right. But if somebody upbeats them, if someone beats them and upbeats them, someone upsets them, Texas Tech.
Texas Tech is very good. They probably got the player of the year in that Toppin kid.
Maybe Arizona gets hot. Seems unlikely.
I think
Iowa State.
Arizona's good, but I think they're a tad overrated.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Don't want to rain on their parade completely.
No.
Just a little.
Yeah. But they're a good ball club.
Baylor is 10-10, but it's unthinkable that they could.
I don't see it.
Right. Win 4 in a row and get that done.
And I'm fine with it because they've had really good teams. And so.
And they don't need to win 4 to get in.
Maybe a little slippage.
Yeah. It's different in a power league. We're going to have to reorient our brains. It isn't what we've been used to.
And Houston, they're a 1 seed all the way. It would be a crime if they weren't a 1 seed.
Agreed.
Because I put way more stock into what you've just done the last 2+ months than what you do in 2 or 3 days.
I really just don't think there's any chance they don't get a 1 seed. I think they're going to.
I know, but they don't get talked about.
They don't.
Maybe that's my Big 12 bias against. And because they don't have an outstanding player who just captures you.
They don't. And Duke gets talked about because, A, they're Duke. And B, it's Cooper Flag, right? Auburn's going to get talked about because it's the SEC, and ESPN's going to pump up the Auburn nonstop.
Yeah.
So those two, I get it.
Pearl's
a salesman.
Yeah.
He can sell it.
I once worked out in the Santa Clara Marriott with Bruce Pearl when he was at Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Green Bay, one of those schools.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, I think it was BYU in the Cable Car Classic.
The Cable Car Classic.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that in forever.
I think it was, but he was obviously younger, and when we're both in there, and we're talking to each other for about an hour, and you could tell he was a guy who was going to go places. But yeah, I agree with you on that. But it just seems like Houston doesn't get the run, and they don't play in this big arena that's 18,000. It's smaller, it's old, but it's not Cameron Indoor, so it's not as charming.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff.
Got a feel for the 4th number 1, or we'll just wait for a week from now? SEC, just because the SEC has so much strength.
How many are you going to give them, though? You going to give them 10?
Two number 1s.
I was thinking, do you give them 3, though?
No, I don't think they get 3. I think Houston's getting 1.
Okay.
I think Houston, Auburn, and Duke each get 1. And then an SEC team, and maybe we have to see how the tournament plays out to figure it out. But an SEC team.
I'm not 100% sold on Houston. I mean, I am personally.
You don't think the committee is? I think the committee is. I think they'll get it.
They should.
But Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, I mean, they've all had really good seasons. Mm-hmm. And I assume, and we'll probably have to see, let's see what happens in the semis and the final, and then we'll probably know who the 4th number 1 is. I assume it'll be one of those 3. I assume they'll get taken care of. Michigan State's really good. We haven't mentioned the Big Ten. They ought to be up there.
They always are.
Texas Tech ought to be up there.
Texas is a good ball club, man. They're good. No doubt about it.
If they get a 3 seed, then if Houston gets a 2 and Tech gets a 3, then the league has been just big time. Big time.
I would agree with that.
So we talked some college hoops, and Ken Pomeroy, wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to him. We usually don't get much in the way of injury news out of the NHL. Upper body, lower body. That's about all they'll say. But the Utah Hockey Club has issued a statement within the last hour that Valimaki underwent successful surgery to repair a torn ACL, expected to be out 8 to 9 months. So Thanksgiving or Christmas, maybe. It'll be a while. They'll be without him. He's played 43 games for him
And
this
then
year.
you had Connor Ingram. Looks like he's got some personal issues he needs to conquer.
He has stepped away, so.
And that's highly unfortunate,
Right.
obviously. He'd already had them. And then the death of his mother.
All right, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Time for your feedback. We have multiple questions this morning. BYU rolls Utah for its 8th consecutive win. How you feeling about the Cougars going into the Big 12 tournament? 11-2 and highly ranked True Blue BYU, 1984. Gives it the old Larry David, pretty good.
Okay. Not by that.
Full sheer Ute gives it the old Reggie Miller choke sign. Pac-12 battle cattle. As long as they don't face Duquesne, I think they'll win a game or two.
Duquesne. I don't think they're going to face Duquesne. I have no idea what kind of season Duquesne's having.
But they're not having it in the Big 12, so they'll avoid them in the Big 12 tournament this year.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the NCAA tournament.
He is talking to NCAAs last year, and we'll see who they get.
Yeah.
Zach says, if the Cougars don't start 0 of 13 from 3 and they don't get out-rebounded, they don't turn it over that much, and they score more than the other team, I think they'll be fine. Thumbs up.
Anytime you outscore your opponent, you're going to be okay. Yeah.
Always a good sign.
I think they're a better team than they were last year. So
a better team, and they're peaking. Do you feel like last year's time was peaking, or it was just kind of they were playing and they got there?
I don't. They had a pretty good team last year.
They did. But this team feels like it is, without question, at its best. No one would debate it.
Yeah, I think they found roles that they didn't know what they were. They weren't defined. Now they're defined, and a lot of guys are playing their best ball.
They were 5-4 in their last 9 going into the NCAA tournament last year, so they were not peaking.
I mean, Keita has just come on, a massive rim protector, massive difference maker, rebounding, offensive rebounding, defense preventing shots, those types. Shot blockers more often than not prevent shots rather than block shots, and they don't statistically get credit for that. And you can see he's doing that. So they've got the pieces in place, and Demon with his all shucks kind of personality thing he's quietly effective.
Walker Kessler has a monster game against Toronto, but then is rested against Philly. Is it bothersome to sit a 23-year-old, or no problem? It's part of tanking. Mike, he's proven to be too good and too valuable. Maintain the tank.
Well, yeah, when you're this close, I mean, you can touch the end of the season metaphorically, so they've got to do that, yeah.
They'll let him play against Boston. Unless, to your point, if an hour before the game they find out Boston's sitting 4 guys. That they might adjust it then. But I think that's the only reason.
Yeah, depending on who the 4 guys are. Yeah. Boston, I mean, Porzingis seems to always be hurt, and then you've got Holiday. But if you've got Tatum, Brown, and what's the old man's name now? Horford is around, and their subs, White, Pritchard, those types of guys. Yeah, play these guys. But it's close, man. This is a tight race to the bottom.
Horford, Horford and Tatum are day-to-day. Kristaps Porzingis is out.
He seems like he's always out.
Yeah. Illness. So that's his deal. And our deal, time is up. Jake and Ben are next, right here on The Zone.